Councillors, if I can have your attention, please. The time is now past. It's actually a couple of minutes past 4, but our clock is somewhat behind us. So I'd like to welcome you all to the January meeting of Council, the first meeting of the new Council, and hence the reason why I'm chairing the meeting is because we don't currently have a mayor in place. The first, and before we start, we need to undertake, each councillor has to take the oath or affirmation in accordance with section 233A of the Act. What we intend to do there is to do them in alphabetical order. There will be 2 copies of the oath or affirmation, depending on which one you intend to take. I'd ask that you read that, the document that I give you. There are 2 copies, one for yourself, which is the copy in the brochure, or in this document holder, and also one for our records, which we will keep. So we can go ahead with that. We'll do it down here. And if I could call in alphabetical order, Councillor Bushell. Yeah, just come around here.
Mask on or off?
Yeah, so if you can recite that, and then I'll get you to sign the document.
I, Councillor Belinda Jane Bushell, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Thank you, and if you could sign that. And the other one for yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Furman.
Thank you. I, Councillor Rick Bruce Furman, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment, so help me God.
Thank you. Good. It's a very old.
It is. So, I, Councillor Jason Anthony Good, swear that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Congratulations. Councillors. Thanks. I, Councillor Anthony Dean Irvine, solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Temora Shire community, Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers,
authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Congratulations.
I, Councillor Nigel Leslie Judd, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of the Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
Congratulations.
I, Councillor Claire L. McLaren, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
I, Councillor MacOliver, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of the Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities, discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act. Okay, read this in classes about it. To the best, in the best ability and judgment. Oh, jeez, I better get new glasses.
I, Councillor Lindy Louise Reinhold, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and that I will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment.
That's the secret.
I, Graham Peter Sinclair, swear that I will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interest of the people of the Temora Shire community and the Temora Shire Council, and I will be faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act in 1993 and any other. To the best of my ability and judgment.
Congratulations. Thank you, councillors, and congratulations on your election. Councillors, moving on with the agenda, the next item on the agenda is the election of Mayor and Deputy Mayor, which under the Local Government Act, the General Manager of the Council is to act as returning officer. So, accordingly, I would ask if there are any nominations for the office of Mayor. I do have one. I have one nomination from Councillor Rick Furman, and I call for further nominations for the position of Mayor. As there are no further nominations for the position of Mayor, and the nomination form I have is a valid form, I therefore declare Councillor Furman elected for a period of 1 year, 10 months, which will expire on in the September meeting in 2023. Congratulations, Councillor Furman. Councillor, my last duty today is the position of Deputy Mayor, the election for the position of Deputy Mayor. I currently have one nomination for the position of Deputy Mayor, namely Councillor Graham Sinclair. Are there any further nominations for the position? As there are no further nominations for the position, I declare Councillor Graham Sinclair elected as Deputy Mayor of Temora Shire. I'd now like to congratulate Councillor Furman on the election to Mayor and invite him to take the chair. I think it's an opportunity for Councillor Judd to finally get out of that chair.
Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I thank all of my fellow councillors for your support in re-electing me as your mayor. I have to say that I am deeply honoured, and I don't care how long one has been sitting in this chamber, either as a councillor or as a deputy mayor or a mayor. That tremendous sense of pride is very real, and I think when it ceases to exist is time to hang up our spurs. But I do want to thank each and every one of my fellow councillors for your confidence, and it means more than means more than words can appropriately describe. So I would also like to acknowledge my mother and father who are in the chamber. Their love and loyalty and support is something that is very dear to me, and I'm very grateful to them. And of course my sister Jamie, who certainly likes to pretend that she's the boss of the household, but that certainly isn't the case. But I do thank my family very, very deeply. And I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Vicky Oliver, who I couldn't do the role obviously without my family, but obviously Mrs. Oliver, who looks after the business that we love whilst I'm on council duties, and she's very, very, very dear to me. I want to particularly congratulate each and every candidate that stood for election to Moora Shire Council. It does take enormous courage, and I do congratulate each and every one of them for wanting to do good for this place that we love. I particularly congratulate all of you on your re-election or your election. So those that have been re-elected, congratulations to our new councillors and Councillor Bushell, Councillor Good, who returns to the chamber, being a former councillor of Moora Shire. Councillor Good, to you, well done, and to Councillor Irvine. To you three, I do congratulate you, particularly your contributions, I believe, are going to be extensive, and we very much look forward to working with each and every one of you. I congratulate the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair. He is, well, during my 9 years as Mayor, and I know is, I think, Deputy to Councillor Judd, and to former Mayor Spears. To you, Councillor Sinclair, thank you for your measured and considered approach to all that you do, and for your friendship. And whilst we mightn't always agree, I do appreciate your frank counsel. So thank you, and well done to you. I want to thank the General Manager, Directors, and every single staff member of Moora Shire. I want to thank you all for the roles that you play in making this organisation what I consider to be one of the best. Yes, we can do better, and yes, we're going to improve, and that's part of, I think, any organisation. We want to keep improving to do the very best that we can. Councillors, I simply say we look forward to a very, very exciting term in office. Yes, it's a shortened term, but it's one that is going to be a very exciting one, a really exciting one for all of us to be immersed in, and every single one of us, whether we're an elected councillor sitting in the chamber or whether we're a staff member implementing those decisions that we as councillors make, each of us should feel very blessed and very privileged to be part of this process. And I'm looking at Councillor Judd and thinking he's been sitting in this chamber here for over 45 years. That's an amazing achievement, and one that warms the heart even just reflecting on it. So Councillor Judd, we particularly, I know we call him the father of the chamber, but your experience and your wisdom and contributions will be highly valued by this council, that's for sure. I also want to mention before I conclude is it is very pleasing to see in the chamber two immediate past councillors of Moora Shire, and they were in Councillor Dennis Slay, sorry, Mr Dennis Slay, beg your pardon, and Mr Dale Winkie. It is so pleasing to have you both in the chamber with us again, and I apologise on behalf of Mr Ken Smith, a long-serving councillor who rang to say he was unable to be here, but he asked me to wish every single councillor and staff member all the very, very best for the ensuing term. But it is pleasing to have you both in the chamber, and always remember, as you've probably heard me say, and we mean it, that you are and will always remain part of the Temora Shire Council family, and that's a very privileged place to be as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much. But again, ladies and gentlemen, we're all willing to work hard. We all love Temora Shire, so let's get to work. So again, I thank you very, very much. So thank you very much. We resume back to order of meeting of Temora Shire Council, and before we proceed with the rest of our business, Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to endorse the Mayor's remarks about the election of this present council.
Thank you.
It's good to see fresh faces on new council, but just like to mention that this is an historic council. This is the first time.
Thank you, Gary. Sorry. Thank you.
This is the first time in my time in council that we've got 3 ladies being elected to council. And I think that's very historic to have, 1/3 of our council now with ladies. In the past, we've had, even with 11-person council, we had up to 2 ladies. On one occasion, we tried to get a third one, and unfortunately then the 2 were on council lost their seat, and we only had 1 new one elected. So it's great to see our ladies being represented, and we look forward to their contribution in this new council. I'd just like to support your remarks about Mr. Dale Winky. I remember back in 2012, I tried to encourage Dale to have a go then, and he nearly went, but he said, no, I'm not quite ready. But anyway, he stood for council in 2016, and yes, and unfortunately, he hasn't been re-elected, but the same thing I've said to Mr. Dennis Slade. When you look back, especially over the last 5 years of this council, what's been achieved, so I think Dale can really look back and say, well, he made a significant contribution to this council over the past 5 years, and I think we can all look with pride at what's happened. So thanks Dale, and I appreciated Dale being on the Aerodrome committee with me, and it was great having someone else that was very keen on the aerodrome and planes and that, so I'll miss that. Anyway, that's all, Mr. Chairman, and just want to mention particularly about our ladies being on council now. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Judd, and I think all of us in the chamber would endorse your remarks, and I think that it certainly is. I think, again, I said earlier that it takes courage for any candidate to put their hand up, but particularly on your journey over 45 years as a council to see for the first time 3 ladies elected, it certainly is worth noting, and I do thank you very much for that. Councillors, we now proceed to remind the new council, remember that this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Temora Shire Council's webpage for public information. All present today are reminded that whilst we're speaking, that we are agreeing that our view and our comments are being recorded and published. And we're also reminded that if or when that we are speaking, that we're of course to be respectful to others and using the appropriate language. And Temora Shire Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during this council meeting, which of course doesn't happen here at Temora Shire Council. So thank you so much. Now, councillors and senior staff, let's proceed to our opening prayer, and I'm delighted to advise that immediate past Councillor Dennis Slade accepted the invitation from Council to deliver our opening prayer for the new council term. So again, working together, Mr. Winky is helping. Mr. Slade, would you please lead us in our opening prayer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Loving Father, you taught us that without you we can do nothing. As this new group of councillors prepares to hold their first council meeting, we turn to you to seek your help and guidance in the coming years. Let your grace flow into the hearts of these generous people so that they will never forget that the residents who voted them into this position are depending on their help and guidance to ensure that our region continues to prosper. Please give to the councillors the wisdom and strength that they need in order to fulfil the wishes of the voters. We recognise that there will be many challenges along the way as councillors guide and protect the local people at a challenging time in the story of our Shire, our state and our nation. Please give the councillors and staff the strength and perseverance they need to serve Temora Shire in its various calls for help. We pray that the current council will build on the work done by prior councillors and Shire staff, and that as we all move into an exciting future, you will offer them guidance and energy for this new team. Give our councillors wisdom and understanding. Help them to work together for the benefit of the Shire and teach them to listen carefully to one another and to the community. We make this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Councillor Slade, for those very heart-rendering words, and Councillor, most grateful. And please know that you and Mr Winky and any other former mayor or deputy mayor or councillor or frankly staff member are always welcome to be with us in this chamber and wherever else we may be as members of our council extended family. So thank you. Now let's proceed. We don't have any apologies, Mr General Manager.
No, Smith.
The engineer, Mr Robert Fisher, thank you.
Who will hopefully be dialling in
At the appropriate time. Okay. Thank you. So therefore here's an apology for this meeting. So someone care to move that apology is, thank you Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion please say aye. And to the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Just again for our newer councillors, in case you may not be aware, the microphones, if you do wish to speak or just press your button and you'll be in the queue, and when we finish speaking, of course, we try to remember none of us are perfect, remember to switch it off. But again, if you wish to move or second something, you're quite welcome to raise your hands as well. So thank you so much. Any declaration of any interest at this time, please, councillors? Councillor Good.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest in the subdivision proposal of Gilmore Street. I don't know the name of it, but so I'll have to leave the meeting when that's discussed.
Thank you, Councillor Good.
Mr Mayor, I declare pecuniary interest on the teabag issue on page 137.
Thank you. The Director of Finance, I beg your pardon, the Director of Environmental Services. Go to Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in the new eastern subdivision adjoining Gilmore Street, as I'm a neighbouring landholder. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I also declaring an interest in relation to, on page 149, 16.2, the Murrumbidgee Local Health District. One, as the chairman of our Temora Local Hospital Advisory Council. So if there's no further declarations at this time, remember you can also declare them later if you don't think of it now, so that's fine. Let's proceed to confirmation of the minutes of our November meeting of Temora Shire Council. Now, Mr General Manager, I'm assuming that would be only for the re-elected councillors.
The re-elected councillors would have to move and second it, but all council can vote on it.
Yeah, thank you. So, those re-elected councillors, is someone prepared to move that the minutes of the November meeting? Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Reinhold, moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Matters arising, Mr General Manager.
It seems so long ago, but no, there is no matters arising.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillors, let's now proceed to our business paper, and we commence on page 10 on the General Manager.
Just before we go on to the committees and delegates, Mr Mayor, I wonder, in the past we've had a practice of drawing for seating arrangements. That's of course only a practice, but if council wishes to continue that, we would generally do that at this stage of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr General Manager. So councillors, yes, I don't know how far back Councillor Judd that practice has continued, that it's drawn for seats every 12 months. Certainly my time, Deputy Mayor, and yours too probably. Or currently it's alphabetical, which you may like to leave it at that. Well, it's up to you. It's interesting, councillors, to talk to others throughout the Riverina region at least, and it's very interesting. Some of them just pick anywhere where they wish to seat. Some will have seating for the entire term, and others do what we do. So it's not consistent, which will surprise me. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If no one has any strong objections, can I move that we maintain this seating arrangement for the first 12 months of our term? Thank you.
Yes, I will accept that as a motion. Councillor Good?
I'll second that.
Second, thank you. Has Councillor Good got a nameplate? Thank you. It's just I was nearly going to call you Rick, which... Thank you. Second, Councillor Good. Further discussion? So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Are you happy, Mr General Manager? Thank you. Councillors, let's go to your business paper, page 10, 3.2, the committee and delegates for the ensuing 12 months. So we'll just go, councillors, one by one, being a new council. Excuse me. So we start at number 1, the Environmental Liaison Committee. Whether the Director of Environmental Services, whether you're able to give a brief outline of the role of that committee, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's currently inactive due to the loss of some key staff in the environmental reporting front from the Riverina Rural Land Services. So, yeah, we meet once, twice a year, not very often, and to talk about all matters environmental, liaise with schools and land care groups mainly.
Thank you. So you require up to 3 delegates or 3 from council?
Yes, that's been past practice, yeah.
Okay, and that's councillors, not including staff?
That includes staff, yes. We haven't had that many councillors before.
So we normally have 1 councillor, okay. So normally 1 councillors. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I have sat on that previously, so I'll continue it.
Thank you. So Councillor Oliver has expressed an interest to fill that position. Are there others? No? If not, so as the General Manager, you're happy to, if we move all this in the one resolution at the end?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So thank you, Councillor Oliver. You can fill that position on the Environmental Liaison Committee. Thank you. We go to number 2, which is the Local Emergency Management Officer, which is our Engineering Works Manager, Mr Dallenberg. Thank you. We go to number 3, the Riverina Eastern Regional Organisation of Councils, REROC, which is the Mayor, and there is an alternate delegate, which I think was Councillor Judd, from memory. Councillor Judd. So Councillor Judd's happy to continue. Everyone happy? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Let's go to number 4, a very important one, particularly in light of recent events. Riverina Regional Library Service. So we require one councillor delegate, an alternate councillor delegate to attend with the Director of Administration and Finance. I think Councillor Mr Slay used to be the delegate before, but I see his fingers sort of pointing upward. Councillors, is there someone that would like to give that a go? And again, I remind our new councillors, just, don't feel that you have to, go into everything as well in your first year particularly. Councillor McLaren.
Can I just inquire how often the meetings are over in Wagga?
Thank you. The commitments required. Thanks, Councillor McLaren, the Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think they're about 3 times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. And since COVID, they've actually been offering remote access to the meetings as well, which has helped.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren?
I'd be happy to put my hand up for that one then.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Councillor McLaren, you're putting your hand up as the councillor delegate on the Riverina Regional Library. Thank you. Is there an alternate? Please. Councillor Bushell? Councillor Bushell.
Yeah, I'd like to be the alternate delegate, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Bushell. So everybody happy with that? That Councillor McLaren is the delegate and Councillor Bushell the alternate. Thank you very much. So let's now go on to number 5, the Bland Temora Bushfire Zoning Liaison Committee. In terms of the regularity of that particular organisation, Mr General Manager, in terms of their meetings, please. Or the Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So they meet twice a year, generally in March and September.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Wink, Mr Wink, was the alternate, was the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair. So you're happy to continue, Mr Deputy Mayor? Thank you. So we have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, as the delegate, and the alternate delegate, Councillor Judd. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Any further interest? If not, thank you to the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Judd. Let's now go to number 6, the Golden Fields Water County Council Board Member position. We require one councillor. It's normally a 4-year term. Of course, will be reduced to 2 years and 8 months, the life of this council. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, has been the board member previously. Deputy Mayor? Sorry.
Mr Mayor, happy to keep the position.
So you're happy to continue? Thank you. Is there any other councillor that has a keen interest? If not, that is an endorsement, Mr Deputy Mayor, for you to continue. So well done and thank you. Councillors, we next go on to the Temora Traffic Committee, and typically we meet, we're supposed to meet quarterly. Just during COVID, it's been very frustrating. And I sit on it as the local state member Parliament's representative. So therefore, we've had former councillor Ken Smith sat in as council's rep, and that committee meets with police. So anyone that would interest, if you can please push your button, thank you, and then I can go to you. So it has the police, the Transport for New South Wales, and council, of course, the state members representative, and the engineers and so on. So that committee. Councillor Oliver, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll have a go at that.
So you're
thank you.
Keen to put your hand up for that. Thank you. Anybody else? No, you're happy. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Let's go to another highly sought after committee position is Regional Weeds Committee for Riverina. One councillor to be on that, along with the Director of Environmental Services. I'm not sure who sat on that one. The Deputy Mayor. So.
Yeah, that's 4 times a year, and it rotates between Coolum and Junee and Temora Shires. So.
Okay, thank you. So the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, was the previous office holder. I haven't seen any red lights on. The Deputy Mayor, are you happy to serve in that capacity?
I guess so, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let's now go to number 9, the Lockland Regional Transport Committee. And I think Mr Winky was on that one. So the Lockland Regional Transport Committee, now I know it would be out of order, but the commitment in relation to that, or as required, I think... Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So, councillors, there's one there, the Lockland Regional Transport Committee. Councillor Judd. So, Councillor Judd, you're happy to serve?
Yes, if no one else.
Uh-oh. Well, I can't see any red lights, so Councillor Judd, you're it, and thank you for putting your hand up. Councillors, we now go to number 10, the Riverina Joint Organisation, and we've had one dealt which has been, of course, the Mayor. However, when I was Mayor at the last term, I was appointed as the independent chairman, and I'm currently the acting chairman of the Riverina JO board, and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, was the board member. So I think in terms of legislation, I think the Deputy Mayor has to be, and then if he declines, then the board, the councillors determine that replacement. So the Deputy Mayor, are you prepared to continue on that board, or would you like to step aside?
I don't smell. Continue.
Thank you. So the Deputy Mayor has agreed to continue as the Temora Shire board member representative on Riverina JO. Thank you very much. Now, councillors, let's go to council committees, and we go over to page 11. The Assets and Operations Committee meets, as you can see there, at 2 o'clock on committee days and has unlimited membership. We have the council delegates, you can see on there. Some of these are the General Manager. You might like to just explain. Thank you, Mr General Manager.
The reason why the reason why for the 3 new councillors I've been put on all committees is that under the current code of meeting practice, all meetings are required to be council meetings that are full council, only council, are required to be broadcast, and that's very difficult with committees because they're often tour of inspections, that type of thing. So because they're not held in an area where you can broadcast them, the fact that they've put someone who's not a councillor on it makes it that it doesn't have to be broadcast. It's just a technical issue, but it is a problem. We just couldn't, there was no way we could continue with the committees if we needed to provide a broadcast.
And OLG give us their blessing on that, didn't they? Yeah. Thank you very much. So councillors, the Assets and Operations Committee, crucial committee of council, and as so for those, the Councillor Good.
Oh yes, I'll be prepared to go on that.
Thank you. So Councillor Good. Councillor Oliver.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm good.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren. Councillor Judd. Councillor Irvine. Councillor Bushell. Myself and the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. That's a good size committee. Well, it is the crucial committee of council, let's be frank. So thank you very much. But again, remind everybody that, you know, you don't have to put your hand up for everything. But thank you very, very much for that. Now let's go to Economic Development and Visitations Committee. We currently have unlimited membership again and generally meets at 4:30 on committee day. So I go to Councillor McLaren, Councillor Judd, Councillor Bushell, myself and the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. That's all. Okay, thank you very much. Let's then go. Just remember, obviously, councillors, for those of us that are continuing, realise that these committees, they do the committee work and then, of course, fed back to council, and then those councillors that don't sit on that committee still have a crucial role in terms of dissecting that and either accepting, rejecting or amending that recommendation. So, thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just remind the councillors too that even though you're not on these, or we don't nominate to be on these committees, you can, if you have time, you can sit in as an observer. So.
Certainly. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. And you might also have a say as long as you go through the chairman of that committee, but certainly you just can't vote. But thanks, Councillor Oliver. The General Manager.
Yes, while you're on a reminder, Mr Mayor, also these committees are advertised and they are open to the public as well. So,
yeah. Thank you very much. Now let's proceed to the Roads Hierarchy Committee. Well, that's currently has been all councillors, and I would assume that this council would like that to continue. Okay, thank you. Pardon me. Let's go to, on page 11, Performance Review Committee of the General Manager, which is the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and 2 councillors. So that, as I've said before, councillors, that this is a committee that's, we have a general manager that puts himself under more reviews than any other general manager far and wide, that's for sure. Councillor Good.
Yes, I'd be prepared to go on that committee.
So you'd like to go on that, thank you. Councillor Judd. So you're prepared to, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver. Thank you. That's positive. So therefore, we have the Mayor and the Deputy that are on it and the 2 councillors. So therefore, we will have a ballot, which I think is a positive thing. And have you got? Well done, thank you. So let's do that. So just councillors to remind you, thank you. To remind you that the General Manager has the formal performance review, which is held in August, and Mr Terry Kiss of Blackadder and Associates helps us through that process, and it's a very worthwhile one. But also the committee have informal reviews, which is just an informal chat with the General Manager, and then there's also one with the General Manager only and full council for those that are able to attend. So that's really, I think, very generous of the General Manager, that's for sure. And Council, I apologise for the General Manager. He's has a very close family member that he's waiting on calls for. So if you just excuse the in and out. So thank you. Now, so we have the nominees for the General Manager's Performance Review Committee. So my point was, councillors, that you know, councillors can have input, and the General Manager's door's always open all the time. So, you know, but so let's go Councillor Good. So if we can put Councillor Good, this is in order. Councillor Judd, Councillor McLaren, and Councillor Oliver. So that's the order in which they were received. Mrs. Rands?
I'll just go with Judd with McLaren Oliver. But I didn't put them in the order.
The order, if we can put them in the order that I call them out, please. Thank you. Which was Councillor Good, Councillor Judd, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver. Thank you very much. And we are to tick 2. So we're happy with ticks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if we can tick 2, please. Thank you. Councillor, you happy if we continue? Okay, thanks. So whilst those ballots are being counted, we go on to the Internal Audit Committee. And currently there are 5 councillors on the Internal Audit Committee. Now, in terms of meetings, I understand they're quarterly. Okay, so thank you. So councillors, there are currently 5, but I think that we can have any number that council so wishes. So Councillor Judd, thank you. Councillor Irvine, thank you. Councillor McLaren, thank you very much. Further, no, thank you. So that's that is 3. Thank you very much. So did we have those recorded, please? Councillor Judd, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Irvine. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's proceed to Local Government Week. And currently it's been the Deputy Mayor and myself. So is the Deputy Mayor happy to continue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm happy to continue. Thank you very much. Just remember, just because we're happy to continue, if someone else has a hankering, please put your hands up. Thank you very much. So let's now go over to page 12. Right, we have. So thank you very much. Just before we go to the new the Risk Management Committee, we go back to the General Manager's Performance Review Committee, and the 2 councillors that have been selected are Councillor Oliver and Councillor Judd. So I thank you and congratulate those Councillor Judd, Councillor Oliver, and thank Councillor Good and Councillor McLaren for your enthusiasm. But again, I remind those councillors and everyone that there is countless opportunities to have genuine and real input. So I do thank you. Councillors, let's go to Risk Management Committee. There's currently 1 councillor. Who was Councillor Slay? Oh, Councillor Winky was on that. Thank you. So we need to fill that position, councillors. The Risk Management Committee, is someone able to describe that, Madam Director of Administration and Finance? Oh, thank you. Just letting the Works Manager know. The question is about the Risk Management Committee. Are you aware of what's involved there, please? Or
We only meet on an ad hoc basis, probably 3 times a year, I would say, roughly ad hoc. And it's, management and just go through issues of risk in relation to WHS and safe work environment and those sorts of things.
So is there a requirement to meet minimum 3 times or?
I'm not sure about
that. No, that's fine.
Sorry.
Thank you. As required. Okay, thank you. So, councillors, there's a councillor position to sit on that committee that meet as required. We can, Councillor Irvine, thank you. You're happy to serve. Thank you. So Councillor Irvine on that one. Let's now, so anyone else? No, thank you. Right, let's go to the Youth Advisory Committee. Currently we have 4 councillors. Sorry, we previously had 4 councillors, and so I'm happy to continue in that. Others? Councillor Judd, Councillor Bushell. Councillor Judd. So are you happy to be on it or withdraw? I'll withdraw, okay, thank you. So Councillor Bushell and myself, thank you. We're the 2 youngest in here. I'm not the youngest anymore, but Councillor Bushell has that proud title. Okay, so it's myself and Councillor Bushell. Thank you very much, Councillor Bushell. Let's go, councillors, to the Signage Committee. Previously we've had 5 councillors, and that committee meets as required. And I think Councillor Reinhold was actually the chairman of that committee previously. So, Councillor Reinhold, are you happy to? Thank you. Councillor McLaren. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Councillor Irvine. This is all being recorded. Councillor Judd, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Irvine, and Reinhold, McLaren, Irvine, and Councillor Judd. Is that right? Okay. We happy with that? Excellent. Thank you very much. Now let's go to our statutory committees. The Consultative Committee, we don't have any councillors on that one, which is as per legislation. We go to Code of Conduct Committee, and it is recommended, as we've previously done, that Council adopt the REROC panel of conduct reviewers established by REROC. As the General Manager, you're still happy for that recommendation to stand? Code of Conduct Committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's now proceed to page 13, that we have what currently are listed as sunset committees, which effectively the term sunset committees, that they have a finite life. So there are three that we currently have listed there, which is an Aerodrome multi-purpose building that has been three councillors. Mr. General Manager, what's the position in relation to the Aerodrome multi-purpose building? Is that still on council's?
It's still a committee on council's books, a sunset committee, but it obviously hasn't met, or there hasn't been any activity in that space for some time.
Okay, thank you. So, councillors, what's your wish? Do you want to leave it there, or would you like it removed? What's your wish? Councillor Judd.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I've been on that committee, but it will probably be more activated if things start to develop again at the aerodrome. I think we can probably just leave it sit there for a while, but yeah, and if necessary, just activate it again.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Judd. Are council happy to do that? If so, Councillor Judd, I'm assuming. Are you suggesting that we appoint three councillors? Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Judd, are you prepared to be?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Councillor McLaren, thank you very much. So, Councillors McLaren, Judd, and Reinhold. Thank you very much. So then we go on to the Scholarship Careers Committee, and there are three councillors on that. I certainly would like to be on that one. I think Councillor Slay was on that before. The Deputy Mayor, were you on? Meet as required, yeah. So are you prepared? Thank you. So the Deputy Mayor, the Mayor. Okay, we're happy with that. Thank you. Then we go to the Floodplain Risk Management Committee. We've had two councillors previously. Councillor Oliver, I think, has served on that, and I think Mr. Winky was on the flood. Yeah. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll continue on that one.
Thank you. So you're good to serve. Obviously a very important one. There's a lot of work been done and a lot of work to go in that space. So is there another councillor that would like to serve? Councillor Judd. So Councillor Oliver and Councillor Judd to serve on that committee. Thank you. The General Manager.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I had to leave the room. I apologise for that.
I told you.
But the Internal Audit Committee, I understand there have been delegates elected to the Internal Audit Committee. That actually, at the moment, you'll notice there, I've sort of suggested that it be deferred because there's a report coming to the next meeting in relation to the ARIC and the need to adopt a new charter.
Sorry, yes.
And I just, you can leave it as is, but it won't be meeting until after we adopt the charter, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I didn't see that, and I did advise council that you had family commitments to deal with. So councillors, those councillors that put their hands up for that committee, Councillor Judd, Councillor McLaren, Councillor Irvine, you're happy to leave your names there until we sort out what's happening? Yep, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr General Manager. Let's go to our Section 355 committees on page 13. We welcome to the chamber the Works Engineering Manager, Mr Dallenberg. Welcome. Let's go to the 355 committees of council. We start with the Access and Equity Committee, and currently council has had 2 councillors that sat on that committee. Councillor Bushell, would you like to sit on that committee? Thank you. Is there a second councillor that would like to sit on? Councillor McLaren? Thank you. Any further? No? Excellent. Thank you very much. They've kicked a lot of goals so far, and I'm sure plenty more to come. Let's go to the Council's Aerodrome Users Committee, and currently we've had 4 councillors sit on that committee. Councillor Judd has been the long-serving chairman of that committee. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Oliver. Okay, so we've got 2 councillors there. Thank you very much. Let's go to the Area Park Advisory Committee. Currently 1 councillor. We're in trouble if Councillor Judd's not interested. So you're interested, Councillor Judd? Thank you. So Councillor Judd serving on that committee. We go to the Area Park Pool Committee. Again, currently 1 councillor. Councillor Judd. Thank you. To Councillor Judd. Over to page 14. We go to the Australia Council, which has 3 councillors, which has been myself, the Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Oliver. I'm certainly keen to serve. I'm sure whether the Deputy Mayor is happy. Yes. Thank you. Councillor Oliver, you're happy to continue. Thank you. Others that are interested? If not, thank you. Australia Council. Now we go on to the Bundeboro Centre Management Committee, and currently 2 councillors. I think Councillor Oliver was 1 and former Councillor Smith. So Councillor Oliver, you're prepared to serve?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll continue, and if we get finished here before 7:30, there's a meeting tonight, so...
Right. You'll miss out on in-house dinner of gourmet pizzas, I think, Mrs Rands. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Is there another councillor that is interested to sit on the Management Committee? If not, we shall proceed, and thank you, Councillor Oliver. Let's go to now the Friends of the Temora Shire Cemeteries, another very active committee of councils. Currently there's 1 councillor, and I'm not sure who sits. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, I sit on that committee, Mr Mayor, and I'll continue to do so.
So you're happy, thank you. Councillor Oliver. Thanks very much. Let's go to the Heritage Committee, another very strong committee of councils. Currently 3 councillors. I know that both Councillor Good and Councillor Bushell served in their private civic roles previously. Sorry, what am I thinking of, Mr General Manager? Their private capacities, and I would have thought they may be interested. So Councillor Good. Thank you. Councillor, I'll go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, I'll sit on that one.
Thank you. So we have Councillor Good, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Bushell.
The question I have is, do you have to be, can you still be a member? You don't have to be a council delegate, you can still...
You mean as a citizen or...?
Yes.
Okay, thanks Councillor Bushell. I'll ask that question to the General Manager of the Director of Environmental Services.
I think it's a similar role to Councillor Oliver. He's a member of Railway Temora. There's also a council on there as well, so assuming you're worried about the combating Springdale, I see it as a similar setup.
Thank you. So Councillor Bushell.
I also, with the Friends of the Temora Shire Cemetery, I go out there and do some volunteer labour, so I wanted to know whether that's still the case with that as well.
Thank you. So, Councillor Bushell, are you prepared to serve as a councillor on the Heritage Committee? No, that's okay. But in relation to the Friends of the Cemetery, you're still happy to do the work that you're doing, but you can still sit on those in your other capacities. Yeah, thank you very much. Now, back to the Heritage Committee. Councillor Judd. Thank you. Okay, so that's Councillor Good, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Judd for the Heritage Committee, and it's a bonus that Councillor Bush will be there anyway. Thank you very much. Let's go to Imagine Temora. And as you can see that what Imagine Temora is about, in terms of their meetings, now Councillor Reinhold has been delegate for some time. Councillor Reinhold, the delegate, the regularity of those meetings, I think...
Monthly.
Monthly, okay. Thank you. So, Councillor Reinhold, you're happy to continue? Thank you. Councillor McLaren.
Can we have a second delegate on that committee?
If that is the wish of council.
Okay, thank you.
So you're keen to serve, thanks.
Yes, thanks.
Councillor McLaren. So we have Councillor Reinhold, Councillor McLaren on Imagine Temora. Thank you very much. No further. Very good. Let's go over the page to page 15, Lakes and Tannery Management Committee. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, has been the delegate over the years, and I think Councillor Oliver is the alternate. So, the Deputy Mayor, are you happy to serve?
Happy to.
Thank you. So, the Deputy Mayor is happy to continue. Councillor Oliver, are you prepared to continue as the alternate? Thank you. Any other interest? No, thank you. Let's go to the Mary Gilmore Cultural Festival Committee, and currently one councillor, Councillor Judd. Councillor Judd's happy to continue, thank you. Excellent. Let's go to Sister City Committee, currently one councillor and alternate, and I think former Councillor Smith was the rep and I was his alternate. Is anyone, Councillor Good?
How often do they sit?
As required. Yeah, Councillor or former Mayor Spears is or has been the chairman of that committee. Works with our Cultural and Community Services Officer, Ms. Gay, and they've understood they've had at least 3 meetings that I can recall.
Yes, I'll.
Thank you. So, Councillor Good, if you're a delegate, and I'm happy to serve as your alternate. Thank you very much. So we're all happy, thank you. Then let's go to the Springdale Community Committee, and traditionally it was in recent years Councillor Oliver and former Councillor Smith. Councillor Oliver, are you prepared to continue serving? Thank you. Is there a Councillor Bushell? Thank you very much. So we have Councillor Oliver and Councillor Bushell to serve on the Springdale Community Committee. Thank you very much. Over, councillors, to page 16, the Temora Agriculture Innovation Centre Partnership Committee. Currently, we've had 3 councillors on that, which has been the Deputy Mayor, Councillor McLaren and former Councillor Winky. The Deputy Mayor, you're prepared to continue serving, thank you. Councillor McLaren, no, you'd like to stand aside, thank you. I nearly went to Councillor Winky. Councillor Good. So Councillor Good would like to sit on that committee. We have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Good.
I'll go on it for sure.
Okay, thank you. Hold that. I'll ask once more if there's nobody else. Councillor Judd, thank you. So that is the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Good and Councillor Judd. And the Council acknowledges Councillor McLaren's service on that committee as well in the past. Let's go to the Temora District Sports Council. Myself and Councillor Oliver have been long-standing delegates, and I actually note that Councillor Good I took over from him as Treasurer back in, not all that long ago, 1996. So, Councillor Oliver, are you prepared? You sure? I note that you do have some extra responsibilities. And I'm certainly happy to continue. Thank you. Other? No, we're happy. Thank you. Let's go to, I've been practicing this, Temora Fight the Fruit Fly Committee. Say that quickly and it'll test you. And I know that was one of Mr. Slay's favourite committees. But yeah, they're doing great things, and this council have supported them since day one, which is great. So currently we've had one councillor, which was former Councillor Slay. Or was it Councillor Slay or was it Councillor Reinhold? Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, you did, Councillor Reinhold. Now, are you happy to continue, or would you like to have a... Yes. No, well, you're going to be fairly active with the committees. You put your hand up so far. So is there other councillors at this stage that are interested in sitting on that committee? I assume, Mr. General Manager, if for some reason we're not able to fill that role, where does that leave council? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it's not absolutely essential that there be a councillor on it, but with committees, or Section 355 committees, we reserve the right to have a councillor attend. But Mr. Dunstan attends as required as well.
Thank you. So council happy for the moment that we leave for the Director of Environmental Services to attend as required as our rep? Okay, you're happy. Thank you. Let's then go to the Temora Women's Network, and currently one councillor, which I believe is Councillor Reinhold. Councillor Reinhold, you're happy to serve? Thank you very much. Let's go to page 17. The Temora Youth Team, well, they don't want us, councillors, so... So let's then go down the page to the Temora Town Hall Theatre Management Committee, and of course our Director of Environmental Services sits on that Management Committee, and we've had one other councillor, which has been Councillor Reinhold. Are you prepared to continue?
Yes, Mr.
Thanks.
Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Reinhold. Okay, so let's proceed to the Temora Arts Centre. Now, there is a proposal there from the General Manager of one councillor delegate. However, he has noted that that can be changed if that's council's wish. It is certainly an exciting time. The previous council have worked very, very hard with the arts and cultural community to get where we have today. And of course, this year will be a very big year in that space. Councillor McLaren.
I'd be interested to be on that committee. I'd be interested.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren is interested to serve. Councillor Reinhold.
And I would too, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Reinhold, thank you. So we have Councillor Reinhold, Councillor McLaren that have expressed their interest to sit on that. And is that called like a management committee, advisory committee?
It's an advisory committee.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. So the Temora Arts Centre Advisory Committee. Thank you very much. Let's go to the, well, it looks like the final one. The Temora Pinnacle Community Services Management Committee. And we've had two councillors, and from memory, I think former Councillor Slay and Councillor McLaren. So, Councillor McLaren, would you like to continue to serve, or what was your thoughts?
I wasn't thinking of it. I thought they were going to appoint a new structure.
A board, a skills-based board.
At some stage.
So thanks very much. I go to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor McLaren, you're correct. This is new. It'll be a skills-based board, so we'll be seeking, well, virtually after the first meeting, there'll be some sort of workshop with the councillors involved and the Pinnacle staff to come up with a targeted people, I suppose, medical professionals, you know, people that are in that that would add to the board. So that's still to be determined. So the first task of that committee will be to look at the constitution of the committee.
Oh well, I am interested in that.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor McLaren, you are one of those appointed to what will eventually be a board. Thank you. Is there a second? Again, like it's saying currently two, that doesn't mean that we have to have two. So we're happy, Councillor McLaren, you're happy to fly solo? Thank you. Well, Mr General Manager, that appears to be those committees filled, and we require a motion to formally adopt those councillors and senior staff as delegates for the ensuing, period. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Councillor Oliver, thank you. Moved, seconded. Is there further discussion? Just in further discussion, I do thank Pastor Patricia Morris, Mr Winky and Mr Slay. Thank you very much for being with us today. Moved and seconded that those delegates be appointed. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much indeed. Councillors, let's now proceed page 18. So we go to delegates' reports, and I know we've been in a state of flux of late. Is there anybody that has any delegates' reports? I go to the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to report the Australia Day function coming up. Everything's on track with both Airy Park and Timor. They're on their separate breakfast shows. This year, the difference will be councillors receive some funding, $18,000 funding to run an afternoon session. So that will be at the swimming pool, and there's quite a bit of entertainment and so forth being organised for that. So it should be a good day. So it's aimed at the younger generations, but we still certainly want the older people to come along and enjoy watching the younger ones and have a good time. So it's a one-off funding for this year. So it should be a good day, I think.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Anything further? Delegates? No, thank you, and well done to all those involved with securing that funding, but to you and your Australia Day Committee, Council, thanks you very much for the effort that goes into that very, very important day. Further delegates' reports, Councillor Judd.
Just a query with Councillor Sinclair or the General Manager. With COVID getting worse, do you think any risk of Australia Day celebrations being put off or not?
Thanks, Councillor Judd. I go to the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's interesting you say that, Councillor Judd. We did receive a question the other day from Greater Shire, I think, in relation to what was happening around the region, because I know a number of councils have canned or scaled back their activities. Probably the one thing though that is common is that the ones that were held outdoors, some of them are indoors, but the ones that are held outdoors have continued on. And that's what we've advised them, that at the moment, obviously you've still got a watching brief on it, but at the moment we're still going ahead because of the outdoor nature of the event.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Further delegates' reports, I go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to report, I had an email yesterday from Mr Simon Mitchell. He's the operator of Vintage Railway Journeys, and they have two planned trips here to Timor and other places on the 2nd of March. They'll be here in Timor and also the 16th. They've asked that our committee, remove their rubbish, so I'm probably going to be looking for council support in regard with that. It's just general household stuff like veggie scraps and whatever. We did it last year for them. However, there was a lot of recyclable stuff within the bags and we didn't sort through that, so I've asked them this time to have their recyclables, and perhaps we can give them to the Lions Club to help raise a bit of money or whatever. So, yeah, it's this is COVID permitting, of course. There could be up to 150, 170 odd people on this train. They'll spend the night here. They'll utilise some of our venues, probably our supermarkets, stocking up on food, drink, particularly a lot of drink. That's what they do best. Yeah, so it's all looking very positive, but we'll just have to wait and see how COVID turns up. So that's all I have to report, Mr. Mayor.
No, thanks very much, Councillor Oliver, and I would assume that Council's happy to provide that support to Councillor Oliver and his committee. Happy? Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. I just had a few things whilst I've been acting in the position of as acting mayor. Of course, so many things been happening, but of course you're aware that our state member for Cootamundra has been appointed as Minister for Emergency Services and Resilience, which is a very well-earned appointment. I think all of Council would agree, and we look forward to, I sent out a note today, look forward to the new council, or those that are available, can have some lunch with her on Monday the 24th of January, which the details have been circulated, so that's very pleasing. Of course, what wasn't pleasing, again, as received advice, as I'm sure you all did, in relation to the rate peg increase delivered from IPART, the 0.7%. I said in various interviews at the time, that is saying it's an insult and showing blatant disrespect to, particularly to rural and regional local government, would be an understatement. When you look at, I think the income, Madam Director of Administration Finance, from that 0.7 is what, about 30,000 or?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
It's around 30,000. Doesn't even cover the wages increase or CPI or. Anyway, it's a disgrace, and we will, I think, be having something, say, in a future report to Council in that space. And lastly, councillors, of course, the overwhelming news for all of Council and our community, of course, of the $80 million allocation for the Temora District Hospital redevelopment. That was something that probably shocked us all, because as the previous council know, we've been lobbying for that probably for the last 2+ years. This has come a heck of a lot sooner, but the next crucial step is, of course, the development of the clinical services plan, and of which Temora Shire Council will play a part in that, as part of that general consultation and genuine consultation with Murrumbidgee Local Health as well. And so we acknowledge that overwhelming news, and again, being on the front foot as Council have always been in relation to ensuring that services are only enhanced and not diminished, and those verbal reassurances have been given from Deputy Premiers to Ms Cook to Murrumbidgee Local Health Chief Executive, and I'm sure when we all come to have our say as a council in relation to that clinical services plan, we can reiterate what each councillor thinks and wishes to share in that very important next step. So that's all I had at the moment for delegates' reports. Anything further? If not, let us proceed over to page 19, where we have the Mayor's report for November 2021, and there's a motion, or recommendation rather, on page 22 that the Mayor's report is noted. Mover, Councillor Bushell. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Good. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Over to page 23, the Acting Mayor's report for December, and there's a recommendation to be considered by Council on that the Mayor's report be noted. Thank you, Councillor Oliver, the Deputy Mayor. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's go to page 28, staff reports. Motion to receive those, please. Councillor Good, thank you. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare that motion carried. Thank you very much. Over to page 29, the General Manager's report, 12.1, calendar of events. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, you see there the calendar of events. Just a couple of things to note that on Tuesday night there's a presentation of the resident satisfaction survey. There's also, councillors, I did send around a note in relation to the community strategic plan, which you will have a copy of the draft community strategic plan, which you will have a copy of on your desk. Looks like that. There's a proposal to have an extraordinary meeting of council next Thursday, which would be our normal council day. And that is just to receive that report and resolve to put it on public display. It needs 28 days of public display before it comes back to council, and we're meeting again on the 23rd of February. Karen Legg, the consultant, will be coming into that meeting virtually. It'll be a Zoom meeting, so anyone who doesn't want to come into the council chambers can log in as on a Zoom meeting. And Karen will explain the background, and if you've got any questions, we'll answer those questions. You'll also note there I have put her details because she's asked me to do that. If any of the councillors have questions about it, she's quite happy to take those calls and discuss any issue that's in that. So as well as moving the motion to note the report, I would, if councillors of that mind, like to include the holding or the agreement to hold that extraordinary general meeting.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor Judd.
I'm happy to move that way, but did have a question. Are we able to add amendments to the draft report, or is it we've got to go with what's there?
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Judd. The General Manager.
It's not a straightforward question because remembering it's not a council report. Really, it's a community report, but what there may be errors of fact in the report, and I think that's really what she's looking at picking up during any discussions before it goes out for public comment. So yes and no. It's not a straightforward question.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine.
What time would that meeting take place?
Thanks, Councillor Irvine.
Thursday.
The General Manager.
Yes, Councillor Irvine will be at 5:30, and I'm thinking it would be less than an hour long.
And the venue, please? The venue? Here?
The venue will be here.
Yep.
For those that wish to be in person, that's great, but those also that wish to be via Zoom or similar technology may do so on that occasion as well. So, thank you. So yes, 5:30 Thursday, the 20th of January, the Chamber, unless arranged to Zoom in. The General Manager?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just a reminder that a notice will go out. But there will be a notice go out, and being an extraordinary meeting, the only item that can be discussed at that meeting is actually the item on the agenda.
That's right, thank you. Now, so Councillor Judd, you're prepared to move that we note the calendar of events report and further that we hold an extraordinary council meeting on Thursday the 20th of January at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Happy to move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Good. You have seconded the motion. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Over to page 30, 12.2, countbacks. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a new option that's available to council this time. As you're aware, in the past, in the last 18 months of the council, the last 12 months, sorry, the council, the need for a by-election is dispensed in the event that a councillor is unable to continue or resigns or for whatever reason. So up until then, though, there was a need to have a by-election. This gives the option of moving it to the next person in line. That's not necessarily the person who finished 10th because, as I've had it explained, it's a very complex system, but basically what happens is that if a councillor resigns, the election is redone without any of their votes. So, say for example, a councillor receives 400 first preference votes, they're taken out, as are his second, third, fourth, fifth preference votes, his or her preference votes, and then the numbers are rerun. So it's probably likely it would be the next person in line, but not necessarily so.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, and I'm sure the Director of the Director of Administration and Finance would be tickled pink if this was to pass. Let's save a few dollars. Anyway, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Good.
Mr Mayor, I believe that this is a sensible alternative, considering the election cost us $75,000 in the region of that. So I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thanks very much, Councillor Good. Is there a seconder? Councillor Judd, thank you. Moved and seconded. Did you wish to speak on the motion, Councillor Judd? Hang on, Councillor Good, sorry. Thank you. We'll get in the habit. Councillor Irvine, can I get you to... Thank you. Thank you. And I'll just go to Councillor Judd, seconding the motion.
Yes, and just enlarging what the General Manager said, when they do the count back, the actual Electoral Commission actually asks all the unsuccessful candidates if they want to be in the vote. They don't automatically go in. They have to agree to go back into the vote. But, you know, their circumstances might have changed and they're not interested, you know, so, yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Judd. Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, Councillor Judd answered my question, which was exactly that.
Yep.
Yep. Thanks.
No, thanks, Councillor Irvine. Okay, so we have a motion before us, councillors. Councillor Good, Councillor Judd, of the recommendation on page 30. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of items, not a business, but just to explain. In front of you, you have a couple of additional documents. One is the mobile device agreement. If I could get that back off here, just to acknowledge that you've got the device and use it appropriately. The training plan, there's some details there in relation to the training plan. If councillors could get that back to me as to what training they believe they would like to undertake. And also note that on the 5th of February, starting on the 5th of February for 12 weeks, there's they're calling it the Hit the Ground Running workshops, but there's a series of workshops each Saturday that's being run by the Office of Local Government, and they're encouraging councillors to attend those meetings. You do need to register on the council portal. Basically, you go on to the Office of Local Government, register on the council portal. They'll send you an acceptance of the link. One of the conditions of accessing that is you need a .newsouthwales.gov.org.au email address. So you'll have to use your council email address, that's all. And the last one is that we are due to undertake a review of a number of policies, one of which is the payment of expenses and provision of facilities for councillors. I've included that, I've included that. If you could read through that and just see if you see any issues with it, there will be a report come back to council, but I would like your feedback prior to inform that report.
We haven't resolved.
Which one?
We haven't resolved when council meets.
It's in the code of meeting practice.
On the 4th.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. So nothing further of an urgent nature. Thank you. Let's, councillors, go over to page 31, the Engineering Services Department report, and we're very pleased to have in the chamber the Engineering Works Manager, Mr. Dallenberg. Thank you very much for being with us. 13.1, tree removal request, 103 Deboo Street. The Works Manager.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this request is for the removal of 4 trees outside 103 Deboo Street. An initial request was received, which myself and the Open Spaces Coordinator addressed. My response to that initial request and the initial request are attachments to the report. Then later on, we've received the tree planting removal request, which is this current removal request following the other works for the removal of those 4 trees. It's pretty much as per the report and correspondence attached, and the removal cost is noted there under budget implications and would be covered under maintenance funding, which can adequately fit in that funding. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a chance to drive past these trees today, and those trees are right up and down Deboo Street, and I feel that if they're knocked out, it will really affect the amenity of that historic Deboo Street. I acknowledge the work Council's previously done at our expense, and I'd like to see how that runs over the next 5 years and see what the result is.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLaren. I now go to Councillor Bushell.
I agree with Councillor McLaren. I walk past those trees daily. They might be a little bit messy, but they're beautiful trees.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Councillor, but you'll get the hang of it. I now go to... No, you was Councillor Irvine.
So that's live? That's good.
Yes, you're on.
Gotcha. The only thing I'll say is the amount of trees. There's 4 trees and they're fairly immature at this stage. They're going to be a massive tree. I don't know whether any consideration's been given to perhaps the option of maybe just relocating or transplanting 2 while they're available, like at this size, because those 4 trees, they're a huge tree, and they will dominate that person's amenity, shade, yard, whatever, and pretty much fill their yard defence side every autumn with leaves and debris. I think it's just something to consider given the extremely large tree that these will become. At the moment they look pretty good and healthy, and I appreciate there's been money spent on root barrier and work in that location, but I just really looking at that at the moment, I just think there's probably too many trees there. That's all I'd like to say on that matter.
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. Now go to the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I had a similar concern actually when I looked at four trees in the front of one house. I thought probably a bit overdone, and yeah, they do grow into very big trees when they're mature. So yeah, if it was possible to remove 2 of them, maybe better.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I now go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Irvine's views on this. So they are an extremely large tree, and they will dominate that particular area. I think Councillor Irvine's idea of removing 2 and also Councillor Sinclair, I would support that, but no more than 2 though, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Well, happy councillors to receive a motion. Again, noting that there is, of course, a cost there, but again, as it's been noted, for an investment that may save a lot of pain. Councillor Irvine.
Well, could we frame a motion along the lines of that we remove 2 trees with a view of relocating them if at all possible? Yep. And I don't know whether there's any point in consulting with the landowner as to the 2. I'd recommend the 2 centre ones to give the 2 outside trees room to grow. So the motion would be to remove the 2 centre trees with consultation with the landowner and relocate, transplant if possible.
Thanks. I'll accept that motion, Councillor Irvine. Thank you. And I'm sure the Works Manager, you think that's appropriate as well?
Yep, through you, Mr Mayor, based on Councillor Irvine's comments, no disagreement in that recommendation or proposed recommendation. We'll just have to investigate the possibility of transplanting and the cost associated before making a decision.
Good. Thank you very much. So, accept Councillor Irvine's motion. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to second that motion.
Second the motion, Councillor Oliver.
Just in regard to transplanting, they're probably a little bit too advanced to transplant well. We tried it with some trees, I think in Victoria Street one time, I think, or somewhere. It was somewhere anyway, and they didn't transplant very well. But we'll give it a try anyway, so thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Irvine, Councillor Oliver have moved that Council removes the 2 centre trees with consultation with the landowner and the preference to transplant the 2 trees elsewhere. Movers happy and seconders happy with the motion. If that's the case, I will put it. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Now let's go over to pardon me, page 39, 13.2, tree removal request, 17 View Street, the engineering works manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In regards to this report, request for removal of the claret ash outside 17 View Street. Following the initial request for this, it was assessed. That was prior to knowing about the plumbing damage. At that point, they were requested to submit a tree removal request and would send it to council for a decision on it based on the issues with the plumbing service on the house from the roots.
Thank you, Mr Manager. So your advice to council, Mr Manager, would be, if you had to?
Our advice is that we can undertake curb maintenance with a tree that established, but other options like root barrier, etc., won't really be effective in terms of this tree for the size of it and how deep the roots would be where they're going into the yard. So to alleviate that, really the only option is removal if council chooses to go that way.
And that would come out of existing maintenance fund if that's what council chose to do. Thank you. I go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's a similar tree in the same street about 10 metres up the hill, similar size. So whilst it is enormous, and it probably is too big for the narrow pavement width that's there, it might not be the last request we get. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McLaren. That's a good point. However, I suppose we have to deal with what's before us, but it certainly flags, pardon me, if this request does get up in terms of removal, then that council may see others come forward. So it is an important prompt. Okay, but let's look at what's before you. What's your wish? Someone like to move a direction? Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, I'd just like to move that we remove the tree.
So Councillor Irvine, you're moving that we remove the tree in question. Thank you. Is there a Councillor Irvine? Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Seconder for the motion. Councillor Oliver, thank you. Moved, seconded. Is there further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd probably like to see a more suitable tree planted in its place with root barriers and all the bells and whistles. Trees are an essential part of a streetscape as far as I am concerned. They do cause a bit of problem, but their aesthetic value is worth more than what they cost. So if we could put a suitable tree back in its place, I'd be happy to see that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Oliver. I now go to Councillor Good.
Mr Mayor, in light of what Councillor McLaren said earlier, would it be worth doing a report of all the trees in that area, up that view street, because there are various sorts of trees and which would be the most appropriate.
So, Councillor Good, you're suggesting, yes, that we do an audit of that particular precinct, or
in light of potential
yes.
other issues that may arise, yes, and
so let this lay on the table until an audit was received. Is that what?
Yeah, that would be my preference. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So on that point, thanks, Councillor Good. The mover and second of the original motion. Do you wish to stick with your motion, Councillor?
Can I just speak on what Councillor
Yes,
Wood just
Councillor
said?
Irvine.
If the audit was undertaken, I still don't think that would affect the removal of this tree as such, in terms of the damage and the request from the landowner. There has been a tree down the street fall over just this week as well, so there probably does need to be something done in the long term. But the resident up the road might be more than happy to have that big shady tree and park their cars under it with great pleasure each summer. So it's hard to preempt what another resident would be thinking in that respect. Yeah, I accept that you don't want the place to look like a desert for sure. But we're fortunate that the residents take a great pride in the town, and I think we've got to work with them when we get requests like this. So I support the idea of the audit, however I would still move that this works be undertaken regardless.
So, thank you, Councillor Irvine. Would you be, and the mover, second, I beg your pardon, be prepared to incorporate part of Councillor Good's views that, we proceed with the removal, suitable tree planted in its stead, however, and further, that we have an audit of that precinct?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're happy to include that. Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd support that. I think we've already done a tree audit, though, haven't we, somewhere?
Some time ago.
Some time ago.
Thank you.
But I still, we just deal with this on a case-by-case basis. I don't think we need to be... I know in the economics of scale, or economies of scale, that it would be probably cheaper to remove the whole lot at one time, but I think just case by case, I think, and as Councillor Irvine said, those other people may be very pleased to have that big shady tree there. So,
thank you, Councillor Oliver. Now the Engineering Works Manager.
Yeah, just following on from those comments, so the last tree audit was 2010, so it probably is due for a new audit across the board for all street trees.
Yeah.
But in regards to the earlier comments from Councillor Good, I would say it's probably hard to capture everything within that audit. So initially looking at this particular request, we were looking at the issue with the curb, and it was only after speaking to the resident themselves about finding out about plumbing issues and the issues to do with the dwelling. So to do an audit up that street, we'd nearly have to consult to see if there's issues as well, which probably isn't feasible because we're not going to do that as part of every tree audit, consulting every single landowner. So,
okay, so the way that I'm interpreting that, Mr. Manager, is that the audit, the street tree audit more broadly, would be welcome across the urban areas, I suppose, also Area Park. I don't know whether the audit incorporated, yes, all of Temora Shire. So that's good. That if we went down that path, that would be well overdue and could be done, fit in as time permitted. Manager?
I believe following the last tree audit that the Manager of Engineering Services is going to plan to do a report back to Council from the last tree audit. I think there might have been an action from the last Council in regards to that as well.
Right, so we will receive a report, Mr. Manager, from in relation to a tree audit of Temora Shire.
Yeah, I believe it was a report noting what actions were undertaken from the last audit, and in that I think it's a proposal to undertake a new audit since it's been more than 10 years since the past audit.
Thank you very much.
And from your earlier comments, it included all urban street trees, including in parks, both Temora and Dairy Park.
Thank you. Well done, Mr. Manager. You did well. So on that basis, Councillor Irvine, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Good, are you then happy to then revert back to the original motion that Councillor Irvine moved, that Council removes the tree at 17 View Street, Temora, and a suitable tree is planted in its place, given the advice we've received from the manager? Yes. Thank you. So Councillor Irvine's happy, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Good. Excellent. Thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. We got there. Now let's go to page 43, 13.3, tree removal request for King Street. The engineering works manager.
Yep, so this is for King Street, removal of 2 native gums outside that property. There's the initial request that's noted there. Initially, after being reviewed by myself and the Open Spaces Coordinator, we were sort of committed to knocking it straight back. But this particular request is from a staff member of council, lives at this address, so we wanted to present it to council for a decision rather than it coming from us.
Very wise. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councillors, you have recommendation there. Oh, well, actually, that's we consider, so it's up to council to determine what you believe is a way forward. Councillor Irvine.
Slightly similar comments to the last issue. However, I do note the residents' concerns about the sap and probably the they just for mine seem to be trees that aren't probably appropriate out the front of someone's house. They're an open space tree or a and please don't take this as a negative comment, but we've got things like crepe myrtles planted on the approaches to town, which would be very appropriate in this setting, and trees of this scale would be more appropriate on the approaches to town. But that's not a negative comment on how the crepe myrtles look. But the scale of this tree, I imagine it would drop flowers, leaves, sap, gum nuts, bark, and small limbs. And I can understand the request from the resident in that light.
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. Let's, other comments, views in this space, go to the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, they're not a particularly suitable tree for urban streets, I don't think. I think over the years we've had quite a few of these sort of trees taken out. You know, native trees they're much better trees. You know, if they're not causing any problems, I don't see any reason not to take them out, but if they're causing problems, I think it's probably best removed and something more appropriate put in their place.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think that's well said also. Go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. These eucalypt trees have a habit of breaking branches, and if one of these branches fell onto this resident's car, we'd be up for a cost of repair. But I am reluctant to be removing trees, but I think we've got to have a more suitable planting of trees in this town. Some of these things, I don't know how old this tree would be, but you don't get to live very long in this town if you're a tree. You get chopped down pretty quickly, but I think that's because we haven't planted suitable trees in the past, and I think that's what we've got to look into as well. When we do the audit, I think that's something that we've got to assess as well. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. Well, councillors, we're in your hands, pardon me, in relation to 13.3 4 King Street. Pardon me, I know that the maintenance funds were gobbling up quite a bit of it, but again, it's appropriate we look on this case by case. Go to Councillor Irvine.
The only compromise I can see would be to remove the larger of the two trees and retain the smaller, looks like a flowering gum or something of that nature. It doesn't seem to present anything like the problems of the larger tree. I don't know whether the landowners would be agreeable to that. It might be a compromise.
Thanks very much. Councillor Irvine, would you like to move that direction?
Yeah, I'll move that we just consult the landowners and see if they would consider that as a suitable outcome in this circumstance.
Thank you. Removal of the larger eucalypt, native gum, and retain the smaller tree. Thank you. So you're moving that way. Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor McLaren.
Yes.
Second the motion. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Does the engineering works manager, that's a workable recommendation from your perspective?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's fine. And just in regards to Councillor Oliver's comments on species, that was sort of decided within that street tree management policy that was developed last year.
Yeah.
That had the suitable species list at the back. So for the new councillors in particular, if you're looking at the suitable species, they're listed at the back of that document.
Because that was revamped significantly, I suppose. Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Well, if there's, no further discussion, I'll put the motion in relation to 13.3, the tree removal requested for King Street. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anything of an urgent, late nature from the engineering works manager, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, probably the only comment in regards to engineering would be the recent flooding and storm event. Been in discussion with Resilience New South Wales, who were making inquiries on behalf of the Minister in regards to a declaration for the current event. That's likely to proceed. It hasn't happened as yet that we're aware, but is likely to happen, and we did indicate that we would likely have additional works that need to be undertaken sort of in the western and southern parts of the Shire, noting that the northern and eastern sections at Mirandula and Narrabri already have a flood scope approved under the March declaration from last year that we got the funding secured in December.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and I have to pass on councillors I know expressed to me at various times since that flood event or events, the manner in which you have particularly conducted yourself in terms of informing council and our wider community, and of course all of those staff under you and beside you that stepped right up during those periods. We're most grateful, and if you'd pass that on to your team, please, from all of us in the chamber. Thank you. So if nothing further of an urgent late nature from the engineering department, then let's proceed to page 46, the Environmental Services Department, 14.1, Stronger Country Communities. The Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is just to officially notify Council of the result of our Stronger Country Communities application. We advised in December that 7 of our projects were approved, and unfortunately 4 were not. That may have some implication for budget estimates, so I'm just officially notifying Council of that result.
Thank you very much. Acknowledge the town planner's presence in the chamber. I didn't see you there earlier, but so councillors, it is good news that we've received confirmation of that space, and I would assume councillors are aware about the unsuccessful projects you see there, and the one that was in fact successful, which was the shooting. What do we call that, Madam Town Planner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Sporting Shooters Association were successful in their grant application for commencing their new project at Gilmore.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and we congratulate them also. Now I go to Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I must say I'm not very happy the way the state government does their grant projects. You know, they rely on the Earth Council to work out the priorities for grant projects, and they sort of still have a system where they don't trust what we put forward. This was even evident in previous grants when they had to conduct a survey to back up what we decided, and I think this is just another case of, you know, I don't think we wasted, you know, we come in here to have workshops and work it all out, and we're still superseded what overrun by what the state government wants. And I just say, I think we've got to express our dissatisfaction of how these grant funds are worked and come up with a better system.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. I certainly remember that we've expressed that, I think, in the previous round. The previous council was certainly deeply grateful for the grant funds that we've received from the Stronger Country Communities Fund, that's for sure. However, it does frustrate us when we're charged with trying to identify suitable projects. We come to various workshops, and a heck of a lot of work's put into it. So yeah, I can see exactly where we're coming from. We've expressed concern before with the process, and if that's the wish of council, that we're certainly happy to do so again, whilst acknowledging how grateful we are for, of course, those funds. That's for sure. But we are happy for the shooting club as well. But yeah, that was a surprise for us, of course, and probably even more so for the shooting club. So, Councillor Judd, did you wish to move? There is a recommendation on page 47. Note the outcome. Would you? Oh, sorry, Councillor Irvine.
Just on that, is there any way that we could prioritise the projects that missed out if they do go to that further round of funding in this year?
Thanks, Councillor Irvine. My understanding, Mr General Manager, is that those projects that miss out, they stay in our respective IP&R plans until such time as they're funded or council chooses to remove them.
That's correct, Mr Mayor, and what generally happens is that we hold just a workshop where all those projects are laid out on the table, and the councillors determine the priorities at that stage.
Yeah.
And plus there could be other projects brought forward, but from the delivery plan that have been identified.
Thanks, Mr General Manager. Let's go to the Engineering Works Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to make one comment, because in that report it talks about Asquith Street footpath construction, which half of that's already constructed, which was council funds. Then we're waiting on this funding for the rest of that. Because it was unsuccessful in this, the $200,000 that was nominated in LRCI funding, Local Roads Community Infrastructure, it is nominated Asquith Street footpath to complete the other block within that $200,000 funding, along with a few other footpaths. So I just wanted to note that, since that was in this.
Thank you, Mr Manager. So I'll go back to Councillor Judd. Councillor Judd, there is that recommendation. Whether you wanted to add that in the letter of thanks to the member for Cootamundra, that we also express our concern in relation to the what would you say, the structure in determining who's funded from a government perspective. Okay, thanks, Councillor Judd. Seconded that. Seconder, Councillor Irvine, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Gidgenbung, what did they call it, the sporting shooters thing?
Yeah.
That has potential to be a very good draw card for this area.
Oh yeah.
They were, in one of their presentations, I think they were talking about hosting international events. So if that's the case, it'll be a very good venture anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. And look, and I know all of us in this chamber are very excited about what the shooters are looking to achieve. Yes, we just need to work with our state government to make sure we're communicating with each other to see what the priorities are as far as council and our community are concerned. So, thank you. Mover and seconder, are you happy with what's on your screen? That captures it. Happy, Councillor Irvine? Happy, thank you. Moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Let's go over to page 48, Councillors, 14.2. Planning proposal, minimum lot size amendment, North Street, Mimosa Street and Bartondale Road, Temora. The Director of Environmental Services.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is a request from a group of residents about a reduction in the minimum lot size of some R5 land in the northern part of Temora. They've engaged a town planning consultant who's provided a fairly detailed planning proposal, and that's included in the report. Staff believe it's provided strategic justification for the amendment, and on that basis, and it's also one of the concerns we had before about the spot rezoning that we considered a couple of years ago was the potential land use conflicts, though I think they've demonstrated that they can be managed, and on this basis, town planning staff are recommending that council proceed with the amendment.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillors, over to you with your views. Some of you that have served on council before may remember part of this presentation, so it's pleasing to see a more thorough and detailed proposal that's before council. So the deputy, yes, the deputy mayor.
Yeah, as the director said, I think it covers our concerns from previously, so I'm quite happy to support the recommendation.
So you're moving that way. Thank you. Second, Councillor Reinhold. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Reinhold, are moving the recommendation at the bottom of page 51. Is there further discussion? There's no further discussion. I'd ask the council to please raise your hands. All those of that opinion. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, council. We have to do that, of course, with planning decisions that are recorded, so the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very, very much. Let's, councillors, proceed way over to 14.3 on page 88. Proposed residential industrial subdivision, Loftus Street and Gallipoli Street, Temora. And I go to, thank you, Councillor Good has declared his interest in leaving the chamber. The Deputy Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. And I go to Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've declared a non-pecuniary interest in this.
So well, it's your call, but it's your call, Councillor Oliver. But non-pecuniary, you are permitted to stay in the chamber. Thank you. I now go to the Director of Environmental Services.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is another detailed planning report from our town planner. This is a very significant development, two-stage subdivision, 63 residential lots and 10 industrial lots. We had a very detailed application received, which was notified to neighbouring residents and was advertised in accordance with our notification DCP. We had 3 submissions received, and they've been summarised along with the comments from the applicant and the town planner's response, and that's summarised in table on page 105. So it's we've had good input from our engineering department about the civil aspects, and they've been included in the 31 conditions, which is most important to note. And those conditions should ensure that the development's delivered in a timely and professional manner, and also alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbours. So with that, we're recommending approval of the development with those conditions.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillors, over to you. I go to Councillor Irvine.
Just got a couple of questions for the Director.
Yes,
The
Councillor.
stage 2 of that proposal isn't zoned residential as yet, is that correct?
So thanks, Councillor Irvine. Go to the Director.
It's zoned industrial already. Oh, sorry, the stage. Well, that's actually stage 3, I think, but I can't really see what it's marked. But yeah, that's zone rural, and that's not subject of this application. That's just indicative to show how it all fits in.
Yeah.
That will require rezoning.
Right. So there's that. Now, I note in the civil they're talking about pushing all their stormwater down Melaleuca Street. I have reservations as to whether or not that. I can't see whether they've. How shall I? Are we on the hook for dealing with the stormwater once it gets to Melaleuca Street?
So I go to the Director.
When you mean on the book, do you...
On the hook, I mean, is council responsible for it once they deliver it to that point?
Yeah, that's how it works, yeah.
Yep. So, has there been any considerations given to underground works in that?
I'll have to defer to our engineering team, but I believe that there is works proposed in that area, Victoria Street, Melaleuca Street, and the drain through Norm Woods, and I believe that is programmed for development sometime in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Just if I can remind, and certainly I know our new councillors are all learning, but just please put your questions through the chair, and then we'll call the relevant director or manager to respond. And if they can wait for the call, so I can introduce you for the tape. Thank you. I go to the engineering works manager.
Yeah. In regards to the Director of Environmental Services comments, that's correct. There's a few modifications at the culvert that goes under Victoria Street and some drainage down the bottom of there within Council's plans.
Thank you. Councillor Irvine.
So, is the runoff or the stormwater to be direct above ground, or are you going to put it under?
Thank you. The engineering works manager.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In regards to that, up in the subdivision itself, it is underground stormwater down to there for a 1 in 5 year storm event, and then the overland is 1 in 100 year, which is typical of other subdivisions as well.
Thank you. Councillor Irvine.
And the only other comment I had in relation to that was the lack of any buffer zone between the residential and the industrial. And I think there's potential for future conflict in that space. That's probably about the only problem I can foresee in that. It's just basically houses backing onto industrial, and it could cause friction. There's been situations in Wagga where Cartwright's Hill, for example, was residential, and you've got Bowman industrial, and there's been a series of ongoing disputes in that space because of the... They're not mutually supportive in my experience. However, that'll be up to the users.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. I now go to the Director of Environmental Services.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Irvine. That is a good point. I think the redeeming features is that they're very small industrial blocks. They're not, large scale, and each DA that's considered for those industrial lots will be subject to merit-based assessment. So things like noise and land use conflict, has to be looked at on an individual basis. So yeah, you're right though, but there's got to be an interface somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Now, councillors, any other views, comments? I go to Councillor Judd.
Yeah, I share Councillor Irvine's concern about the stormwater control. First question is probably item 10 on page 111 about the 6 metre wide easement for stormwater. Now, can you just explain, is that for council to do work on the stormwater or for the developer?
Thanks, Councillor Judd. I'll go to the director, or does the director wish to defer to the town planner?
Well, I think I might defer to the engineering department because I would believe that'd be for the overland flow. Is that right?
Thank you. We'll go to the engineering works manager.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to that easement, that easement width is based on future work. So once the development is undertaken, if we need to get in and undertake works in the future, that easement allows us space to do so for future works, because that asset becomes a council stormwater asset once the development hands back over.
Thank you. Hang on. So did you have supplementary? Sorry, thanks, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Judd, supplementary.
So does that mean in the future, if there's a problem with the stormwater, we've got to be able to go back there and supplement on something?
Thanks, Councillor Judd. The engineering works manager.
It's more meaning in terms of later on in terms of infrastructure. If something needs replacing or repairing, we can get access. But again, if stormwater is an issue down the track, it doesn't rule out space within that for duplication. But that's not considered as part of this because the stormwater is designed for 1 in 5 years, like I mentioned, for the underground drainage, which is the same as every other subdivision that's gone through for residential.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Final one, and then I'll move on.
Final one.
Councillor Judd.
Probably ask the town planner, but the financial contribution by a developer, say, I don't know what's called Section 92 or something now, to infrastructure. Can you just elaborate on that, please?
Thanks, Councillor Judd. We go to the town planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this development application, it imposes a condition which is under Council's Developer Contributions Plan, 7.12 it is called, and so that requires the developer to make a contribution which contributes to nominated projects within our contributions plan, which does include some stormwater projects as well as other general community projects.
Thank you, Madam Town Planner. Thanks, Councillor Judd. Let's go to a very patient, is on. Very patient Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to the engineering department and perhaps the environmental department too, I suppose. Has there been any calculations into the amount of water that may or might come off this particular area? Because once we start building streets and whatever, and I'm wondering what the impact will be on our existing, and I know we've got a peak for an upgrade, and that dam that we built, the retention basin, it works reasonably well, except when we get a really major thing. But I'm just wondering if there's been any calculations in the amount of water that may come off that particular area.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. We go to the engineering works manager. If you're able to answer that or take that on notice.
I might hand that back over to Director of Environmental Services because I'm not sure on that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the Director of Environmental Services.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's the first thing you do when you do these calculations to work out pipe sizes. So, yeah, that's definite. This is only, and that's been done at this preliminary stage. When we get to issuing the subdivision certificate, we have to have more detailed plans that we go over with a fine-tooth comb. But yeah, that's the very basics of hydrology design. So yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I now go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also had two issues. One was the concern about noise levels emanating from the industrial estate to disturbances for the residential area being so close. Is there any way you can, I've just been trying to look up the EPA guidelines on industrial estates, but I couldn't find anything. I don't know where to look really. Can you put limits on that industrial land for those noise emitting to protect the residents, or is it under some legislation already?
Thank you. I go to the Director of Environmental Services.
Generally, there's requirements that, noise levels can't exceed 5 decibels at the boundary of the property. So that's a fairly standard condition. Offensive or hazardous industries not necessarily permitted in an industrial zone, believe it or not. So, it's subject to a merit-based assessment. So, that residential industrial interface has always been there. That's where the zones join. That hasn't been changed by the developer. That's something that's sort of in the town plan. So it's going to have to be, we're going to have to be cognizant, and we're going to have to manage that going forward through merit-based assessment when we get to the DA stage. So.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Further supplementary, Councillor
And I also
McLaren.
worry about whether the stormwater runoff from that area is going to end up in the southern block of the main street and flood that area, because it all sort of swings around, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is a genuine concern. Probably all the
That's where it goes, and
yes.
we've had the industrial estate has contributed to the issues that we've had. So that's a part of the flood study and the mitigation works that are that we're proposing, we're working on at the moment too.
Because I have seen videos of red water flowing down the gutters of that block that have come off that recent development on Gallipoli Street, Wadley Place, I think it must have been, when it was not built on, like 18 months ago or whatever. And it did obviously come down that way, so it was a concern. And it's going to be even more on a bigger scale.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. The Director, you have anything to add? Or?
Yeah, erosion and sediment control is something we haven't done well in Temora Shire at past. We're generally a flat terrain, but that's something that we did experience in Wadley Place, and thankfully that development filled quickly and there's not so much red dirt to wash, so that's positive. But erosion and sediment control is something that we will have to condition on those development sites going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you, Councillor McLaren. I go to Councillor Irvine.
And just to speak on that, generally residential won't shed what industrial will shed in terms of runoff, just due to the fact that the residentials are softened with your landscaping features of lawns and gardens and stuff like that, whereas your industrial's hard stand and hard roof. And we are getting to the point up in the industrial now where some of the blocks that used to soak up some of that excess water have been built on. There was a block there where Intersales have a new shed that's been taken up recently. The land at the top of the hill there where Delta Ag's new development is now, that's going to contribute greatly to the runoff, and it used to absorb quite a lot up there because it was undeveloped land. So that's all going to add to this issue. It's a perfect time really to upgrade the junction there at Melaleuca Street and the under Victoria Street circumstance and the drain. But it will be an issue, but I don't see it as a bigger issue with residential as with industrial.
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. Mr. Director or Town Planner, do you have any comments?
No, nothing more to add.
Thank you. Councillors, you have a very, very important DA in front of you to consider. I go to Councillor McLaren.
Sorry, I just wondered whether we should put a condition in there on the boundary between the industrial and residential, whether the fence height be a certain height, just for privacy and noise and amenity for the residential. It's like we did next to the service station, 2 metre fence or something.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. Does the Director or Town Planner have a comment in relation to that suggestion?
It's an option. I think we'd, generally the fence is the responsibility of the purchaser, but we could make them the responsibility of the developer that's quite an option if council sees fit.
It'd be just nice to have some protection so that they're not at the same level,
It's not an unreasonable request, I wouldn't have thought, but no. Thanks, Councillor McLaren. Well, councillors, we're in your hands. I think all of us in the chamber would realise how exciting that what's before us. Of course, I must admit, I think one of the submissions was a little frustrated that it was advertised for sale before the neighbours were consulted. But having said that, we all make mistakes from time to time, but I think council were impressed for those new councillors that we had the developers come and present to us in a very, very professional manner, and we were very grateful for their belief in the present and future of Temora Shire. However, we deal with what's before us, and it is up to this council to determine whether we consider the recommendation, amend it or reject it. Very important decision for this council. So, Councillor McLaren.
Can I add the condition that the delineation between the residential lot and the industrial lots have a tall fence?
An appropriate size,
fence, yeah, separating the two zones.
Thank you. So you're moving the recommendation with that addition. Thank you. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Judd. Thank you. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, the only reservation I've got is the close proximity of the industrial and the residential, and it really is just a back fence on this plan. There's no open space whatsoever with the street design or anything. Even if it was just the access street was on some sort of a boundary, I'd be happier. I don't want to see problems, but I can just see that it's industrial backing onto residential with a tin fence. I don't know if there's any other spots up there where that occurs. There seems to be a break. There's Nixon Park between the Industrial Avenue development side of things. There's Gallipoli Street tends to be the barrier at the western edge. It's open land to the eastern side. It's the sticking point in my mind is just the hard interface between the residential and the industrial.
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. I don't know whether the Director of Town Plan, do you have any response to those
Nothing
comments?
additional, but we've mentioned that a couple of times, so.
Yep. Thanks very much. The Deputy Mayor, further discussion on the motion before us.
I think in relation to the interface between industrial and residential is that if people go in there to buy a block, they can see the plan, they see what's where, and they should be buying a block with their eyes wide open, I would imagine, and realise that they're backing onto an industrial area and there may be noise or something like that. So I think it's up to the purchasers to do the homework before they purchase, make sure everything's right.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Further discussion on the motion, councillors? If not, the Town Planner.
I'd also add that the future industrial purchaser would also go in with their eyes wide open, knowing that they have residential properties on the other side, and if their business is noisy, obviously it's not going to be a suitable site and they need to choose a different site elsewhere in Temora, hopefully. But given, as the Director mentioned, that these lots are small, only 2,000 square metres, generally that we would expect to see light industrial type development. We're not permitted to have a light industrial zone anymore. The Department of Planning is phasing that out. But we would generally be expecting to see industrial uses that have relatively low impact rather than something that's very noisy or causing odours or lots of problems with traffic and creating a nuisance for adjoining residents.
Thank you very much. Well, winding up debate, Councillor McLaren.
Just one last question on that issue to the Town Planner.
Town Planner.
On future approvals in the industrial area, we can put conditions on their blocks to sort of maybe put a boundary of shrubs or something to try and absorb some sound or something like that. Is that what you're envisaging?
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. The Town Planner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, yes, we'll assess each application on its merits, but we always strongly encourage future developers to come in and have a pre-lodgement meeting with us and talk to us about their proposal, and we will be pointing out to them that there is a boundary with residential on that northern interface, and that they need to consider the placement of their building and how they operate as part of their future application, and then we then assess that when it comes in to us.
Thank you very much. Well, councillors, we've had appropriate discussion and debate as we should on such a significant proposal put before us. And I'm now going to put, pardon me, it to the vote. You have the motion on your screen that Councillor McLaren and Councillor Judd have moved, that we sort of, thank you. You see there that the motion before us is a council approved development application, pardon me, 86-2021 for a 63 lot residential subdivision and 11 lot industrial subdivision at Loftus Street, Temora, subject to the conditions as attached, and further that a condition be included that the residential and industrial areas be interfaced by appropriate fencing. And that wasn't Councillor McLaren, Councillor Judd, and also shrubbery, was it, or was it Councillor Irvine that? No. Councillor McLaren.
I just asked a question whether that could be a future condition on industrial.
Thank you. So that has been moved by Councillor McLaren, seconded by Councillor Judd, and I'm going to put the motion to you. So all those of that opinion, please raise your hands. And I declare the motion carried unanimously. And thank you very much, councillors, and thank you, Mr. Director and Madam Town Planner. Exciting times, busy times. Now, Councillor Oliver, do you mind asking Councillor Good to return? Thank you. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Welcome back to the Chamber, Councillor Good. During your temporary absence, Council have unanimously adopted the recommendation that appears on page 116 with the added motion that residential industrial areas be interfaced by appropriate fencing, and that was carried unanimously. So thank you very much. Nothing of an urgent late nature from the Director of Environmental Services, please.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you very much. Councillors, let's proceed over to page 126, the Department of Administration and Finance, 15.1, the Terms of Usage Nixon Park Clubhouse. The Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So some minor amendments to the policy. The report's as written. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I proceed to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had discussions with the General Manager prior to the meeting. The policy, I think, probably just needs a few tweaks to it, just to clarify the procedure. And I'll just move that that be adjourned to the next meeting so that I can have a meeting with the Director of Finance and a member of the Sports Council to work through certain issues.
Thanks very much, Councillor Good. Council, very grateful to you for that. This is something that obviously Council worked with the Sports Council and the users to come up with this. So this is the first document, of course, our first attempt with a few tweaks, but we deeply appreciate your assistance in trying to get this one right. So thank you. Would you like to move that direction?
I would move that way. Yes.
Thank you. So Councillor Good has moved that the 15.1 terms of usage for Nixon Park Clubhouse be held over to have the matter further, not a workshop, it's to have the matter, to further refine the policy with Councillor Good, representatives of the Sports Council and of course the Director. So that captures your motion.
It does.
Thanks, Councillor Good. Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Councillor, discussion.
This policy gets advertised.
Sorry. I call Councillor Bushell.
Sorry.
Right.
This policy gets advertised for the 28 days, does it? Once it's adopted?
Councillor Bushell, in response to that, what happened is that we've had this teased out by the users, the presidents and executives of the users in this chamber. Then it's gone to the Sports Council Delegates meeting for them to consider and formally adopt, and then it comes back to Council for consideration. But in relation to the 28 days, the General Manager, we didn't think this needed to be 28 days, I think was the advice to Council at the time.
That's correct, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Is that, you happy, Councillor Bushell? Thank you. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's proceed over to page 133. 15.2, changes to fees and charges. The Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the fees and charges were amended following some workshops we had in October in relation to the Arts Complex and the Town Hall. And the fees and charges have been on display and now require adoption.
Thank
Happy
you.
to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Good.
I'll move that recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Thank you. Moved, seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's go over, councillors, to page 134, 15.3, councillor superannuation one. Another tricky one. I'll go to the Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just say the report's as written and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. Just in relation to councillors are aware in terms of the budget, potential budget implications if this were to be adopted. We're talking, around that 12,000-ish?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So at the current rates of councillor and mayoral allowances, it would be at the 10.5% superannuation, which is what would be up for next year. It would be 12,247. Just keep in mind that the Remuneration Tribunal may increase your allowances for the next financial year. So 12,247 plus any indexation on your allowances.
Thank you very much. Well, councillors, this is one that we know that our state body's certainly been pushing, and each individual council across the state has their own views on this one. So therefore it's over to us to determine what we feel is right for this council, not just the current one, but of course going forward into the future as well. No, it's not an easy one, council, when it's talking about ourselves. However, I'll go to Councillor Irvine.
I take the points for the equality aspect and the argument to support women taking on these roles. I think it's a good idea in some respects, but realistically, some people need it, some people don't. I'd just like to make it private and personal, and you can opt to receive it if you wish, and if you don't, you don't. Make it a personal decision. It's not mandatory. If you feel you deserve it, take it. If you don't, leave it there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Irvine. Let's go to the Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'll just say that to enable council to make the payments to any councillor, we need a resolution to approve that, and then individual councillors can opt out if they wish. So just to clarify, yeah.
Thank you. So they couldn't say, for example, Madam Director, that say that there was a resolution passed that we make allowance for that across the board, and say Councillor X said that I would like to donate that, the equivalent amount to that to a local charity of my choice. Is that something that is permissible or not? Not really. The Director?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think we would have to make any payment into a eligible superannuation fund. So if that councillor wished to make that as a donation, that they would have to do that out of their personal funds, not that superannuation amount.
No, thank you very much. The Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, just on the advice from the Director then, I'd say to me that I think it's probably appropriate for council to agree with this, and then it's up to the individual councillors to decide whether they want to be part of it or not. I think the easiest is the most appropriate way to go forward.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Look, I go to Councillor McLaren.
Sorry, I agree. I think if local government New South Wales have been lobbying this for a long time, I think we need to support them in their advocacy, or, it's all or nothing with the local government New South Wales, I think, with councils across the state. So I think I would be in favour of it.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor McLaren. I do agree with all speakers, Councillor Irvine, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor McLaren. Initially, I have to tell you, I did, all I could think of was, oh no, we're spending more money. But then when you peel that apart and dissect it more, you realise it's not just about us. This is about those that are following us as well. And when you look at those allowances that are paid to councillors, we know we're not here for that. Never have been, never will be. But at the same time, we do have to think of others following on from this council. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I support this. Effectively we're giving ourselves a pay rise, I suppose. But I think, as Councillor Irvine suggested before, I think it will entice more women to go on council, because typically their superannuations levels aren't that of what males are. So I think it's a good thing. But I might be a bit reluctant to take it, though. I'm not too sure. But
Thanks, Councillor. I mean, if we have a motion that was to go down that path of paying superannuation for Temora Shire councillors, then again, it could be a matter for each individual whether you take that up or not, which I think would be a wise step forward. So, councillors, I know, councillors, this is an uncomfortable situation, just like when we're considering our fees. But again, I look at it that it's not just, we're not thinking of just us. We're thinking of other councillors that will follow us in the years to come. So, the Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I guess too that, we've had a lot of talk about the amount of time that council does take up these days, and whether we do get
appropriate
for it and so forth, and this effect is adding to that what we do get. So if it helps down the track people put their hand up to become a councillor, I think it's probably going to be a good thing. At the end of the day, it doesn't work out to be a huge amount of money in the scheme of council's budget. So yes, I think we should support it.
So would you like to move that way?
That the Ward Council supports the superannuation, whatever you want to call it, contribution payment scheme.
Thank you. There's some words on the screen, Mr Deputy Mayor, that says Council make a payment as a contribution to superannuation for councillors commencing the 1st of July 2020. So does that capture it? And then ultimately it's up to each individual councillor if they wish to take that up.
Should that be part of the motion, that it's up?
Well, again,
councillor.
Thank you. The Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So that's part of the legislation, that's a given, that it's up to each individual councillor whether they want to opt in or opt out. Yep.
Thank you. I go to, so the Deputy Mayor has moved that way. Councillor Reinhold, you'll second the motion. Thank you. Discussion, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just for the new councillors, just to advise that the current councillors' fees are different from this, in that you can't forego your payment for the for the councillors' fees, you must accept those. That's legislated. The only exception to that is if you're a pensioner, and the acceptance of the fees would affect your pension entitlement. You can under those circumstances. So it is quite different to normal councillors' fees.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. It's been moved and seconded. You see the resolution on your screen that the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Reinhold has moved. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, over to page 136, 15.4, the new Arts Centre naming, community consultation, and that's in the hands of the Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the report's as written. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, you have a report there from the Community and Cultural Services Officer in relation to the naming of our new centre. And I do acknowledge, I'm just thinking that time obviously is of the essence in terms of the naming as well. So this report certainly is very, very timely. Go to Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just wondering, with one of the alternatives, Temora Climate Change Centre, what the hell has that got to do with art?
Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, so I must admit I did shake the head as well. But obviously, community consultation, warts and all. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Councillors, other comments or question just in relation to the, I think Councillor McLaren, who actually showed me a copy of the actual survey form, which I hadn't seen. I don't know whether any other councillor had seen it, but also you hadn't seen it, Mr. General Manager. Oh, right. Anyway, yeah, I thought that perhaps, council may have seen it, but I know there's been that intervening period, of course, as well with caretaker and so on. But anyway, I'll go to Councillor Irvine.
The only question, I haven't been involved with any of this, I haven't seen any surveys. The only question I've got is the inclusion of the word rural in the name. I think it appears earlier in the minutes where it's just referred to as Temora Arts Centre. It seems to be concise and to the point. The inclusion of the word rural, for mine, confuses the matter somewhat and tends to direct the activities undertaken there. So it's only purely a comment, but in my experience, a simple name's often the best, and it seems to be already being referred to as Temora Arts Centre.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. I know I did have an initial concern about that myself, I must admit, but the General Manager, was your light on or not?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in response to Councillor Irvine's comment or question, I'm not... I can tell you the reason I've been given why it's included, and that is that funding bodies like the word rural. Now, the validity of that, or whether that's actually the case, I don't know. But certainly the advice I think that the Community Services Officer received from Eastern Riverina Arts and the arts community was to include rural because there are funding pools for rural art.
Yeah, well, I investigated that, Mr General Manager, too, and with Mrs Julie Briggs, who's the chairman of the state body, and she did indicate that it is helpful. But I know what Councillor Irvine's saying. It does seem wordy, but at the end of the day, we will consider what's before us. Councillor Reinhold.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I sit on the Imagine committee, and it is the umbrella committee
Arts and Culture.
Arts and Culture. I thought maybe I'd missed something, so I rang the secretary to check up on it. We never even got to see the survey on the naming, so I just don't know if this is just being rushed through a little bit, but I just thought that was some feedback for you.
Thanks, very much, Councillor Reinhold. I think that does shock the chamber, to be perfectly frank. I do know time is of the essence. However, I find it somewhat puzzling if in fact that it didn't get to Imagine tomorrow. I don't know, the General Manager, you have any comments in relation to that, please?
No, I don't, Mr Mayor. It surprises me it didn't. I know that I asked the manager to expedite it because we're running short of time with an opening in March, and there's a little bit to be done, particularly on the branding of it. But I can't give you an explanation. I know the officer is on leave, so she was doing it while she was on leave. So maybe that's an explanation, but I really can't give you an explanation for why.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor McLaren.
I just saw a pile of them on the reception out when I was doing my licence renewal at harvest time, so I just took one myself and read it, that's all. So I saw it on the counter out there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McLaren. Well, they're at least, they've been on the counter, and I suppose it'd be informative to Council, I suppose, if we knew, how did that consultation and the surveys, how they distributed, I suppose, would be curious information. And this is where Council is frustrating that our overarching arts body were not made aware, and it is disappointing if that is the case. However, it's also that balancing act of trying to work out, to expedite things as well for the scheduled opening approximately, talking March. But anyway, thank you, Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, just on that matter, I think all the plans for the opening can continue as is. I'd like to see Imagine Tomorrow be included in the decision. I think it should be deferred until they've had an opportunity to discuss it at their level, at the very least.
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. I now go to Councillor Judd.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Irvine's comment before about the word rural. I really don't think it's necessary. I won't be losing sleep over it, it is included, but what I will get up my goat is if we start using acronyms like TRACK, and that's what I really don't want to say.
Hear, hear, Councillor Judd. Oh, local government's got enough acronyms. Thank you very much. Well, councillors, look, Mr General Manager, you've heard what several councillors have had to say. We have got to have this function, I understand, or this opening in March. It's been suggested, I think, Councillor Irvine and Councillor Reinhold, that we do at least have a meeting with the Imagine Tomorrow with this report. Is that something that you would support and that we could expedite, please?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I think, it's disappointing if Imagine Tomorrow weren't included. I do have some concerns, though, about the time frame, because we won't consider this again until the third Thursday in February. And if we're talking about getting plaques and whatever undertaken in a period of a couple of weeks, it's going to be difficult.
So, Mr General Manager, if there happened to be a motion from Council that support, in principle, the Temora naming of the new centre, the Temora Art Centre, for example, subject to consultation with Imagine Temora, is that something that you think could work? And if that took place as soon as practical, urgent meeting. General Manager.
Yes, I think it could. The only issue is going to be if there's a substantial divergence of opinion, it will have to come back to February.
Well, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Irvine.
Could I move a motion then that we give support to Imagine Tomorrow to make a decision on the name, pending a meeting to be held shortly, and the only reason we'd reconsider it in February is if it was too contentious at that.
Okay, so Councillor Evan, you're suggesting that we hand over the naming of this facility to Imagine Temora and that be done as soon as practicable. Okay, so you're moving that way. Is there a seconder for that motion, please? Or the General Manager, have you got anything to say before I call for a seconder?
Just to clarify, so we're basically referring this to Imagine Temora and the council's going to accept their decision as long as it's roughly in line with what has been proposed.
Right. Okay, so thank you. I need, is there a seconder for that particular motion? The second time. So Councillor Reinhold, you're seconding the motion. Thank you. So discussion on that motion, please. Councillor McLaren.
I wondered whether we couldn't start with the motion that it be the Temora Arts Centre subject to Imagine Temora approval or something.
Well, that's what I was suggesting earlier.
And then it could be sort of sorted out quickly without them having to think of names,
Yeah.
you know, because that could be quite a,
Yeah.
you know,
No, well,
for them too.
I did mention that earlier.
Yes,
and,
I liked that thought, but,
Yeah.
you know, I want to give them input as well.
Oh, exactly.
So that's what I'd like to move as an amendment. But
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. I'm going to go to Councillor Irvine and Councillor Reinhold. Are you happy to withdraw? Thank you. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Councillor Reinhold, Councillor McLaren.
And I'd also like to add another section and further that I'd like, because the decision to name the old Scout Hall Park was done in confidential in November, I can understand TADVAC would like some consultation as to why Council decided to name it the way they did. So I'd like to move that Council meet with TADVAC to explain the resolution of Council to name the old Scout Hall building.
Thank you. So happy to take that motion. Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Councillor Reinhold has seconded that motion. Is there further discussion? The General Manager.
Just clarification, council meets with TADVAC.
I would like to.
So a council delegation.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd be happy to come with you as well. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Sorry, the Director of Admin and Finance.
Sorry. Have you decided on the proposed name?
Yes, Temora Arts Centre.
Temora Arts Centre.
Yep. Sorry, discussion on the motion, Councillor Good.
So we're not using the Temora Rural Arts Centre as overwhelmingly agreed upon in the...
Well, the motion before us, Councillor Good, is to remove the word rural. Yes, unless, you know, that's the motion before us, unless there's an amendment. Councillor Irvine?
Just to speak on that, I think the word rural's been included purely for funding purposes, for no other reason, to attract grants.
Yeah. Okay, so we have that motion before us that the facility be named the Temora Arts Centre, subject to, should we say endorsement? Yeah, so move and second are happy with endorsement. Okay. Councillor McLaren?
Just the further bit, the Council meet with TADVAC to explain the resolution naming the old Scout Hall building.
Yeah, or clarify. Or
clarify.
whatever. Yeah, clarify the, yeah. Yeah, thank you. So, Councillor Irvine and Councillor McLaren, are you happy with what's on the screen, please? Yep. The resolution of the naming of, or to clarify the resolution on the naming, yeah. Okay, happy now? Excellent, thank you. Is there further discussion? Councillor McLaren.
Just one point on the funding thing. Surely Temora being in a rural regional location would give weight to it being a rural arts centre if they looked at a map or knew where we were, you know? And if they don't otherwise, then they need to get out of the city.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. I'm sure that our Community and Cultural Services Officer will advocate very hard for grant funding regardless of what's in a name. But we do acknowledge the officer's work in that space. And we all would endorse those words, I'm sure. Well, I'm going to put the motion to you, councillors. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. I need to ask the Deputy Mayor to please take the gavel for correspondence. Thank you.
Council, move on to correspondence. The first item is 16.1, Teabag footpath, cafe and dining policy, and I will hand over to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The councillors, this is an approach from Teabag, as you can see, seeking a change to the outdoor dining policy. It's only an early shot across the bow, I suppose. There's a fair bit of work to be done, but the staff wanted to know whether council were in favour of the principle of what's happening, so that if that is the case, we'd write a report back to council advising them the legal implications and costs and whatever else.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. One thing here that really concerns me is dot point number 2, amend section 2.2 to allow furniture to remain on the footpath at the end of the trading day, as long as it's securely fastened and or a significant weight it cannot be easily removed. Now, what happens if someone's walking down the street at night time and trips over this thing and breaks a leg or a neck or something like that? Who's going to be liable for the cost of damages? Thank you.
I believe that would form part of the report back to council, the risk element, along with... There's also issues which have been raised by Councillor Good in relation to the ability of council to spot change our alcohol-free zone policy. So we'd need to take advice on that as well.
During the week, I sent to the General Manager just a note, but this policy at the moment is an exempt development. So hotels can do this at the moment without getting council approval up until April. It was a COVID proposal, and that's why it's got an expiry date. This is only to get a report back from council, and I actually support this sort of development. It's something that's been going on in the cities for years, and it does bring a vibrancy to the town. It encourages people to eat out and gives it a different place to eat out. I do think it would be beneficial for council to do a report on this, and I would move that we ask council to prepare a report in relation to footpath, cafe and dining policy.
Thanks, Councillor. Good.
The one thing I've got concerns with the permanent placement of furniture is just the cleaning for the council staff with the street sweeper and stuff. I really do believe it needs to be taken in at the end of each day's trade so that they can come in the early hours of the morning and have full access to the footpath as they can. And then there's another issue connected to the permanence, which means that these eateries and premises, they come and go to some extent. And we'll note that you've only got to look at the premises there beside the Commonwealth Bank that was an eatery up until recently, and now it's a clothing store, and then it might be vacant, then it might be something else. And they tend to have this very rolling nature, so anything permanent I don't believe is probably appropriate. The cleaning, I think, is an issue with the permanent stuff and the the risk element of it. So if I was to support it, I'd support it with a view of the businesses take it in every night. And as discussed, I think there's a big issue with licensing and that element of it on the street.
Thanks, Councillor Irvine. I think the point is here that would all be come back in the policy and recommendations and so forth. I think we're looking here whether we want to go ahead with a report. Personally, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, as been said, go to other towns and pretty quickly, particularly cities and so forth, and outdoor dining's everywhere, and from now on with COVID and so forth, it's just going to make it a lot easier for businesses to trade, I think, and be a bit more profitable. So anyway, I'm willing to take a motion, please.
I'd like to move that we do get a report, because I think it's a great idea. The businesses with COVID, what they've been through lately, I think anything we can do to help would be great.
Thanks, Councillor Ronald. Councillor Ronald has moved the recommendation on the screen. That covers it, I think. Yep, okay. Have a second.
Excuse me, Graham, sorry. I think Councillor Good moved that already. So Councillor Ronald might be the seconder.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I support the idea of the report coming back, but I'm dead against this permanent fixture of any furniture to the footpath for various reasons. I think they need to be taken in at night time after the day's trade. So thank you.
Further discussion before I put the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Yes. Item, where we go to there? After we have director back here. Could invite the director back in, please. Item 16.2, Murrumbidgee Local Health District Excellence Awards. I think the Mayor's going to be
I believe he expressed a non-pecuniary interest, I think, in this one as well.
Okay, yep. Okay, over to you, Mr General Manager.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. As you can see, this is the Murrumbidgee Local Health District's Excellence Awards. We have sponsored this in the past. You can see the sponsorship options there raised from a event contributor at $500 through to a major event sponsor at $3,500 for Council's decision.
Mr Councillor, Director, I think previously we did support this 12 months ago.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chairman. So I think last year we sponsored this to the tune of $1,500.
Councillors, any thoughts? I think it's something as well worth supporting. Whether $1,500 maybe maybe a bit too much, but up to your decision.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I think it's a worthy cause too, but I think given our budget situation, this forecast, I think $500 might be appropriate for this year. Thank you.
Would you like to move that way, Councillor Clare?
Yes, I'm happy to move that way.
I'll response to the award to the tune of $100. Councillor Oliver. Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, item 16.3, the New South Wales Greyhounds Breeders, Owners and Trainers Association sponsorship. Over to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an event that we have as a practice for many years, sponsored both the Greyhound Racing Club and the Harness Racing Club. The amount that we have given in the past is $500.
The decision, councillors. Councillor Good.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would move that way, that we support the club by donating $500.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Second to Councillor Judd. Discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Up to.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and councillors. I now proceed to 157, 16.4, the Bundeboro Centre 49th Annual Live Exhibition, Temora Rural Museum. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a number of applications, submissions from the regarding the Bundeboro Centre Open Day. As you can see, the first one is for approval to hold the event as it's held on council land or a council facility.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that we grant approval for the Rural Museum to conduct their live exhibition.
Thank you. Second to Councillor McLaren. Moved, seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Let's go to page 159, 16.5. Bundeboro Centre request for in-kind assistance. General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request, as you can see there, for 20 building site exclusion panels, 2 stop slow traffic control panels and directional parking sign.
Thank you.
There's also, if you go a little bit further on, the waiving of the fees is a later issue, but this is just to approve them having those facilities.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor McLaren.
I'd like to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren is moving the recommendation. Second, Councillor Good. Thank you. Moved, seconded. Further discussion. Councillor McLaren. No, you're right. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Page 161, 16.6, the Bundeboro Centre, live exhibition, road closures. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the temporary road closure of Macaulay Street that's required for the event to continue.
Thank you.
Safely continue, I should add.
Safely continue. That safe is their middle name. Councillors, the report is there for your consideration, as is a recommendation. Councillor Good.
I would move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Good has moved the recommendation. Second, Councillor Reinhold. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Over to page 163, 16.7, Bundeboro Centre, waiving of fees. The General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the financial side of the decisions that's just been made. As you can see, the total cost of all those activities is $1,608.84, roughly. They've asked that council waive those fees. I should mention for the three new councillors that there is a report coming to the February meeting, most likely, in relation to council's policies on the waiving of fees. But at the moment, it's a little bit up in the air as to what happens in relation to that. In the past, we have waived the fees for the event in total due to the nature of the community benefit and also the fact it's a council facility.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Good.
Based on what the General Manager said, I'd like to move that council waive the whole of the fees as requested.
Thanks, Councillor Good. The Deputy Mayor has seconded the motion. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I will put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Is there any urgent late items of correspondence, Mr. General Manager, please?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you. Well, councillors, that is correspondence. We proceed to page 165. At this meeting, the first meeting of the new Temora Shire Council, we have not received any notices of motion, whilst we're all still learning how to handle how we proceed in this space. Then, in terms of business without notice, which of course we know is to be deemed urgent items only. I do know that the General Manager has spoken about that we have to review the meeting code of practice, and I think the General Manager has acknowledged that we need to work as a council how we can still raise some appropriate, whether it's acknowledgements or whatever it may be. Mr. General Manager, you have anything else to add?
No, I need to say that the code of meeting practice is extremely restrictive, you know, we do need to go back. I would suggest a workshop. I know Councillor Judd loves workshops, but it is an important issue, and there's a lot to do. I know we went through it some time ago, but it's when it was originally adopted. But there are some flaws in the current system, and I think we do need to look at ways that councillors can get their message across, and that which meets the
within that framework,
the Office of Local Government.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor McLaren.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have an item that I wanted to raise, and it's to do with the consultation we've been having around the Shire in the rural communities. And I was wanting to hold the next one in the northern section at the Bundeboro Bowling Club for the farmers and ratepayers on the northern side of town. And I was hoping to have it in perhaps late March before sowing and they get all busy. I've talked to a few farmers and they're quite keen to have Rob and Alex out for some discussions. But they're thinking maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. I think Council will be very, very pleased to receive an outline of a proposal, as in if you could outline a proposal to bring to Council in relation to what you've just indicated.
At the February meeting, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
I just thought, I guess that'll give us a few weeks to get the farmers informed.
Oh, well, as long as, if you want something to the contrary.
No, that's all right. We're going to have it early April. I think that'll be enough time. Late March, maybe early April. Okay.
Excellent. If you could put something together, pardon me, for Councillor McLaren, just in relation to what, in terms
I'll talk to Rob.
Date, that would be, talk to the engineering technical manager. No, what is he called now? Engineering services manager. Yes. Thank you, Councillor McLaren. The General Manager?
Just to address what Councillor McLaren has just said, it is in our management plan to undertake a ratepayers meeting in some part of the Shire, I don't think we're going to be knocked over by people wanting to hold it. I would suggest that we probably don't even need a resolution on it, just that it be arranged.
It was already part of the plan. Well, thanks for the advice. Councillor McLaren, are you happy if Council delegate you responsibility to make arrangements? God bless you. It's that pizza that's making you sneeze.
I'm happy to liaise with the engineering department
officers,
to
yes.
organise a time and advertise as appropriate.
Thank you. And the General Manager, we have your blessing to do that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor McLaren, for offering to organise that. I now go to urgent items of business without notice to Councillor Oliver.
This is just in relation to the last.
Oh, yes.
I'm just wondering if it's appropriate for Temora Shire Council to hold a Shire meeting in the Bland Shire. I mean...
Oh, I didn't, sorry, I missed that. I didn't think that was...
No, Medburn's in the Bland Shire.
It is. I didn't think, sorry, that's where it was going to be. I must have missed that. Sorry. Councillor McLaren, thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillor McLaren.
I was going to hold it at the Barmevan Bowling Club, in that it's 5 kilometres in the Blandshire for all the residents, because that's the local meeting place. Or I could have it out on the edge of a paddock if you want, but there's nowhere else for them to go. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's...
Well, thank you for clarifying that, Councillor McLaren, and Councillor Oliver for pointing that out, because I missed that, I'm sorry.
Trungley Hall.
Councillor Oliver?
Trungley Hall has a hall.
Trungley Hall does have a hall.
Shire, and it's in our Shire, so I don't know, it just seems a bit odd that we haven't...
No, I think that's a fair...
Another Shire.
That's a fair point to raise, Councillor Oliver. Councillor McLaren?
I think it's the refreshments afterwards and the gathering and the social interaction that will get them there. You might not get them there at Trungley. Yeah, no.
Well, look, Councillor, I'm sure that Councillor McLaren has taken on board your suggestion of the hall, Trungley Hall.
We'll do an acknowledgement of Shire, shall we, when we start the meeting, that we acknowledge we're meeting on Bland Shire, but it's for the Shire. It'll be fine. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Councillor Oliver, and thank you, Councillor McLaren. Councillors, there's one item that I do believe is urgent, because it'll impact on whether what you want to do for the next meeting in relation to the media officer. Now, some of you know that the Temora Independent cover the meetings in a fashion, and the previous council, not there. So the previous council had engaged a media officer to pump out more stories and more debate, etc., that happens around the chamber, because we felt that wasn't being done adequately by the Temora Independent. That I understand, a question about notice that I mentioned to the Director of Administration and Finance about the approximate cost of that, and understand that was around that $300 per meeting. And that includes obviously a presence at the meeting, plus the time for her to, type up. She sends the stories to the General Manager and the Mayor. And she's a perfectionist, as you all know, Liz Grant, but unfortunately she's had to stand aside from that role. So council need to determine whether that's something that you'd like the General Manager to seek interest in having that position replaced, or whether we believe that we're going to stick with and relying on the Temora Independent to record our council meetings. So, Councillor Judd.
My feeling with having media officers didn't seem to achieve that much. We never seem to know what articles come through from the media officer, or whether they come through from the reporter.
Well, sometimes, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that's my. Yeah. I just seen that we weren't getting a very good effect, I don't think, and I'll just query that. So.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. Look, I thought it was good when there was a byline for Liz Grant on the odd occasion. It didn't happen often. But how it works currently, which I found, or in the end, Mr. General Manager, was that they'd hold off. Mrs. Grant would hold off doing her stories because the Independent said, well, I want to do what we want to cover, and then you can have the what's left over. I was going to say that, but truly, and I didn't realise that's what ended up happening. So again, you know, it comes at a cost. But again, I've spoken to the group editor about this some time ago, and I'm sure other councillors have too. That we, frankly, are not having council meetings reported as we used to do, whether it was way back in Councillor Good, Councillor Judd's time, the Deputy Mayor, you know, with Mr Bent. I know Mrs Edwina Sinclair did an excellent job, and others. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Local newspapers in small towns are a dying breed, unfortunately. The Narendra Argus, it shut for a period of time. It was being taken over. The Genie Southern Cross shut down. I understand it's possibly going to open. As we all know, West Wollongong Advocate shut down. It's a combination of people getting their information online and lack of advertisers. If you look at the Temora Independent on a Tuesday, the amount of advertising in there is minimal, and it won't be long and we won't have a Tuesday paper. I do think local papers are a very important part of the community. It's a way that a lot of people get their information, and it's the only way that a lot of people can get their information. And I do think we should support the paper as much as we can. The fact that they're not getting much income by reducing sales and loss of advertising would severely deplete the amount of journalists they can get to cover things like this. And there's a lot of things that they need to cover. The paper more and more is relying on people to submit stories themselves because they can't afford to keep those journalists. And I think it would be a good idea to have someone at our meetings, a media officer, to provide them with stories so that there is content to the paper, which would have two benefits. One is that it would give the paper a bit of bulk, which some people complain these days that there's not much to the paper. But it also would get our get stories across what's happening in the council when there's a lot of things happening in the council with a lot of things happening in the Shire that that they don't have journalists to cover.
Now, thanks very much, Councillor Good. I think you articulated that very well, and you mentioned all these other communities that lost their papers, and then the community realised as part of their soul is gone, and therefore they move heaven and earth to try and get it back. And it's a credit to all those communities. But you're quite right that it's a partnership that has to be forged. But you know, I was disappointed, you know, that obviously our journalists had to leave early for whatever reason. But I you know, there's a heap of things that were so important that this council discussed that have been missed in terms of capturing that debate and input from councillors. So, thank you very much, Councillor Good. Other schools of thought? Well, the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether perhaps it might be worthwhile just leaving things as they are for a few months to see what does come out now that, as Councillor Judd said, that it was a bit hard to tell what was, you know, written by the reporter, the council reporter, what was written by the paper reporter. So, you know, perhaps we can give them a few months to see if they pick up their pace a bit.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I can see, merit in that too. But then I was worried that when the journalists left, you know, relatively early. That's the sort of, that's the worry. But I take your point. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councillor Irvine.
Is there any way we can get an undertaking from Watson Wilkie Publishing that if we provide content, they will fit it in? And we're not obliged to hire anyone. And I think it's one of those roles where if you get the right person, they're invaluable. But if you get the wrong person, it's just impossible.
Waste of money.
And obviously, Mrs. Grant would have provided way over and above the dollar value in terms of service that she provided. And I don't know whether we're going to be fortunate enough to attract another person of that calibre. But it might be worthwhile putting it out there and seeing what comes forward and then making a decision after that.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. I probably tend to agree with that. I don't think Council has anything to lose by doing what Councillor Irvine's articulated, because ultimately it'll be you that determines whether we proceed with any candidate, hopefully, that we receive or not. And it could all be done on a trial basis if there was, but this council would determine what they wish to do in that space. But I think there's a lot of good debate that comes from these council meetings that our community have to hear if they're not listening to online. The local paper, we do need to support them, as you've said, Councillor Good. So, Councillor Irvine, did you wish to move?
Move that we
Hang on.
Sorry.
All right.
I'd like to move that we advertise the position and reserve our decision once we see who what applications we get.
Thank you. Take that as a motion. Seconded, Councillor Good. Thank you very much. Moved and seconded. The General Manager, you happy with that basis of that motion? Yep, thank you. Moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. No other urgent business without notice? If not, motion receiving the information paper, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Are there any items that councillors have they wish to draw council's attention? If Councillor McLaren.
Just on page 205 of the general business of Motion Arts Temora, they mention the back stairs of the hall, but bowing with the rain. And I'm just wondering whether that's a maintenance issue for council, the back stairs. Did you know about that?
Yeah.
Pardon me. Thank you. I'll call the Director of Environmental Services.
Yeah, that's been passed on to us, and if it hasn't been fixed, it's been allocated.
Right, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thanks, Councillor McLaren. Any further items in the information paper? If not, in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993, I advise that there is a matter that is deemed confidential, which is titled Replacement of Council Prime Mover, and accordingly I require a motion to have that matter considered. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Reinhold, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Councillors, we resume into open council, and on the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, and seconded Councillor Reinhold, Council resolved to move into confidential at 7:52 p.m. The replacement of Council Prime Mover, on the motion of Councillor Good and seconded by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, Council resolved to award the supply of Council's new Prime Mover to Wagga Trucks as per tender for the Mac Anthem at a cost of $281,765 plus up to $5,000 for the auto greasing system, and further that the existing plant item to be sold at auction, and that motion was carried unanimously. On the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Oliver, it was resolved that Council moves the motions from closed business into open council, and that motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Bushell and seconded the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, it was resolved that Council moves out of closed council at 8:02 p.m. and into open council, and that motion was carried. So may I please have a motion that those resolutions are formally adopted. Councillor Reinhold, the Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Councillors, one last duty yet remains before we close, and that is I have some presentations to make. Now, to our new councillors, on behalf of your fellow councillors, all the senior staff and all staff at Temora Shire and every citizen, very proud to present you with a Temora Shire Council pin. And I present this one to Councillor Bushell. To you, Councillor Bushell, there is a lady's brooch that I am very pleased to present to you, and I'm sure that you'll wear it with pride. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
You're welcome. To Councillor Good, very pleased to present to you. Oh, thanks. Very pleased to present to you, Councillor Good, this set of lapel pin and cufflinks of Temora Shire Council, and I know that you'll wear them with enormous pride. So thank you so much. And to you, Councillor Irvine, present to you Temora Shire Council lapel pin and cufflinks, and I know that as it all sinks in as a new councillor, that you'll also be very, very proud to wear this pin. Congratulations. Thank you. So, thank you. There being no further business, I thank all councillors for your tremendous input in our first meeting. There is an air of excitement about what's ahead for this Shire, and I know that councillors together with our staff can't wait to immerse ourselves in all the good things that are happening and will happen. So thank you, and I declare the meeting closed.